Hey guys, tonight we're unfolding one of the oldest, richest, and most mysterious mythologies ever recorded. The full history of the Egyptian gods, from cosmic creation stories to the rise and fall of divine dynasties, from forgotten deities, buried under shifting sands to legendary gods whose names still echo today. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you enjoy the type of content that merges myth and mystery. And hey, let us know from where you are watching from, what time it is for you right now. It's time now to dim the lights and let's cover what we have for tonight. Together, to truly appreciate the complexity and enduring power of ancient Egyptian mythology, we must begin at the very edge of existence itself. Before the pyramids rose from the desert sands, before kings and dynasties carved their names into stone, before gods shaped the world and humanity learned to speak their names, there was only a vast, silent, and eternal expanse. This was not a vacuum in the scientific sense, nor was it a darkness filled with fear. It was simply an unfathomable, endless ocean of potential known as Nun. Nun was not a deity with a face, nor a personality that one could worship in the way later gods were honored. Nun was the embodiment of the primordial waters, the infinite sea that contained all possibilities but expressed none of them. In the minds of ancient Egyptians, the world began as a still, boundless expanse, where time itself had not yet taken its first step forward. There was no sunlight, no moon to reflect it, no air to breathe, no ground beneath any hypothetical feet. It was a realm without form, without purpose, without motion. Everything that would ever exist, every god, every creature, every grain of sand was hidden somewhere in this limitless ocean of nothing. The Egyptians used the symbol of water because to them water represented both life and chaos. The Nile brought fertility and abundance, but the floods could also bring destruction. Water could nourish crops or drown them. It could cleanse or consume. And so in their earliest creation myth, it made sense that the world's beginning was conceived as an endless, unruly sea, not yet shaped by divine order. It was a place where potential floated freely, waiting for something or someone to call it into being. What makes this beginning particularly intriguing is how different it is from other ancient cosmologies. In Mesopotamian mythology, creation begins through violent conflict among divine beings. In Greek mythology, creation emerges from a dark, swirling chaos. But in Egyptian belief, creation begins with stillness. The chaos is not violent. It is passive. It is silent, deep, and patient. It is waiting. This perspective reveals something profound about the Egyptian worldview. Creation is not born from destruction, but from emergence, from the quiet unfolding of order over disorder. From this infinite sea, a mound begins to rise. Not yet a deity, not yet a fully formed shape, but simply a piece of solid ground. The Egyptians called it the Benben, the primordial mound. This concept reflects their observations of their natural world. Each year when the Nile flooded, the land would disappear underwater, only to reappear again once the waters receded. Islands of earth would emerge first, small hills that signaled the return of fertile soil. The Egyptians saw this happening year after year, and so they imagined that the first creation must have begun in a similar way. This primordial mound was the first distinction between what is and what is not. It separated solid ground from the shapeless waters surrounding it. It marked the first moment where existence revealed itself. It was here, on this first mound of land arising from the deep, that something extraordinary occurred, the emergence of the first god. Before the god appears, imagine the moment as the Egyptians envisioned it. The silent waters stretch endlessly in every direction, motionless and dark. Then, like the slightest breath across a still pond, a disturbance appears. A small bulge breaks the surface of the cosmic sea. Slowly, steadily, this mound rises upward, glistening with primordial moisture. It is the first shape, the first boundary, the first sign of order in a place previously without definition. This is the moment of creation in Egyptian thought, not explosive, not chaotic, but deliberate and serene. The world begins to take form through emergence, a theme that permeates Egyptian mythology. The Egyptians believed the universe was structured, layered, and intentional. Everything had a place, a function, a balance. Even chaos was assigned its purpose. This cosmic event is not just a mythological explanation, it mirrors their landscape, their environment, their lived experience. Egypt's geography is unique, a narrow ribbon of fertile land bordered by desert and centered around a river whose rising and falling dictated every aspect of life. For Egyptians, the world was not created in a single instant, but revealed itself through cycles, patterns, and gradual unfolding. Their creation myth reflects that gentle emergence. Nun remains important even after creation begins. Nun is always present, always surrounding the world, always threatening to reclaim it. The Egyptians saw the primordial chaos not as something destroyed or defeated, but as something eternally present, kept at bay only by the daily and nightly actions of the gods. Even Ra, the great sun god, had to battle the forces of chaos each night during his descent into the underworld. Even the stable, structured world we know was seen as something maintained, not guaranteed. Because the world emerged from none, the Egyptians believed that creation was fragile and had to be constantly upheld by divine order, human ritual, and the cycles of nature. In many ways, this belief shaped their entire civilization. Their religion, their architecture, their politics, and their everyday practices were all built around preserving balance, structure, and harmony. They feared chaos not because it was evil, but because chaos meant returning to the unformed waters of Nun. And so the beginning of everything in Egyptian mythology is not a loud moment, not a violent break, but a quiet awakening. From the still waters rises land, and upon that sacred land, the first god will rise and shape the world in ways that echo through millennia. When the ancient Egyptians imagined the birth of the cosmos, they saw it not as an accident, not as the result of a battle between colossal forces, but as a moment of profound intention. Out of the stillness of Nun's endless waters and upon the first mound of solid land, a presence arose, one that did not merely exist within creation, but defined it. This presence was Atum, the first god, the self-created deity, the spark that illuminated the sleeping potential of the universe. His emergence marked the turning point from possibility to reality. Atum is one of the most fascinating deities in the Egyptian pantheon precisely because he is both deeply symbolic and strikingly human in his portrayal. His name means the complete one or the finished one. This reflects the idea that Atum contained all things within himself before anything else existed. He was in essence the totality of creation compressed into a single being. Nothing existed outside of him. Everything that would come after, every god, every person, every law of nature, was hidden within him, waiting to be brought into existence. Ancient Egyptians often depicted Atum in human form. This may seem unusual, compared to other mythologies that begin with gods represented as animals or abstract forces. But by portraying Atum as human, the Egyptians made an important statement. Humanity, in some distant way, shares an essence with the divine. Humans were not afterthoughts. They were part of the original blueprint, embedded within the first god. But the most extraordinary part of Atum's existence is how he came into being. Unlike later gods who were born from divine parents, Atum had none. The Egyptians called him the self-created one because he brought himself into existence without any external source. The process of his emergence was sometimes described metaphorically as Atum thinking himself into being or uttering himself into existence. His birth was a conscious act, an expression of willpower. This idea alone places Egyptian mythology in a unique place among ancient belief systems. Creation is not accidental, it is intentional. Once Atum emerged upon the primordial mound, he faced a universe that was empty and silent. There was no sky, no sunlight, no earth's vegetation, no creatures, and no sound. But within Atum existed the potential for everything. His first task was to bring structure where there was none. To do this, Atum had to create other gods, beings who embodied specific aspects of the natural world. But he didn't create them through physical labor or supernatural tools. Instead, he generated life through acts that symbolize creation in its most primal and intimate forms. In some myths, Atum creates the first divine pair by sneezing or spitting them out. In others, he uses his hands. And in some of the earliest, more esoteric interpretations, he creates them through an act of self-directed reproduction. These depictions, while symbolic, reinforce a single idea. Atum used the power within himself to produce the first distinctions within the cosmos. He did not gather materials. He did not shape the world from external elements. Everything came from him because nothing else existed. This first act of creation brought forth Shu, the god of air, and Tefnut, the goddess of moisture. They carried within them the fundamental forces needed to support life. Shu introduced the concept of space, the breath between earth and sky, the invisible but essential force that sustains existence. Tefnut brought moisture, the substance that nourishes growth, the dew, the rain, the rivers. Through them, the world gained its first structure and its first sustaining elements. But before we explore Shu and Tefnut in depth, it's important to understand the deeper significance of Atum's role. Atum was not just the first god. He was a symbol of the moment when order begins to form from disorder. In Egyptian thought, he was the embodiment of the transition from the limitless to the defined. He stood on the delicate boundary between Nun's waters and the emerging world. Because of this, Atum occupied a liminal space in their mythology. He represented beginnings but also endings. Egyptians believed that at the end of time, Atum would gather everything back into himself, returning the universe to the quiet stillness from which it came. This cyclical perspective, creation emerging from the waters and ultimately returning to them, reflects the Egyptians' close observation of natural cycles. Just as the Nile flooded and receded in a yearly rhythm, so too did they imagine the universe expanding and contracting across eons. Atum was the axis around which this cycle revolved. Temples dedicated to Atum often included references to the Ben stone, the primordial mound. The obelisks of ancient Egypt were thought to represent this mound, rising like a ray of sunlight from the earth. They symbolized creation, stability, and divine presence. Many scholars believe that the shape of the pyramid itself may have been inspired by the concept of the Ben, an eternal reminder of the moment when order emerged from chaos for the first time. Atum's connection to the sun is also worth exploring. Although Ra is often referred to as the sun god, Atum too had solar associations. He was frequently linked to the sun's setting form, representing the golden, fading light at dusk. In contrast, Ra represented the midday sun at its peak strength. This connection to the sun's cycle further reinforces Atum's role as a deity of beginnings and endings. At sunrise, the sun emerges from the horizon like Atum rose from Nun. At sunset, it descends back toward the realm of darkness, mirroring the eventual return to chaos that Atum would oversee. Atum's presence in Egyptian mythology was not always central in later periods when gods like Ra and Amun rose to prominence, but his foundational role never disappeared. He remained the root, the origin, the silent force behind existence. Even when the Egyptians spoke of other gods creating specific things, Atum remained the first source of all divine lineage. Perhaps the most compelling element of Atum's story is the emotional tone underlying his creation. Unlike many mythological deities, Atum is portrayed as solitary at the beginning. He is alone on the mound, surrounded by endless waters. The Egyptians did not shy away from acknowledging this solitude, and it gives Atum a more relatable dimension. Creation begins from loneliness. It begins from a desire for others, for order, for presence. This subtle emotional foundation gives the Egyptian creation myth a unique depth. The universe begins because a divine being wishes not to be alone. Through Atum we see the first movement from nothingness to something, from undifferentiated potential to defined existence. He is not merely a deity but a concept, a force, and a philosophical statement about the power of intention. Once Atum brought himself into existence on the primordial mound, rising from the swirling waters of Nun, the universe was still overwhelmingly empty. There was land beneath Atum's feet, but the world had no atmosphere, no moisture, no movement, no separation. Everything was still dense, silent, and suspended in a kind of cosmic sleep. To move creation forward, Atum generated two essential forces, two divine beings who would initiate the first transformations in the cosmos. These beings were Shu, the god of air, and Tefnut, the goddess of moisture. Shu and Tefnut are among the most symbolically significant deities in Egyptian mythology because they represent forces so fundamental that life could not exist without them. Air and moisture are invisible and intangible, yet they are the foundation of breath, weather, growth, evaporation, clouds, storms, and the cycles that sustain life. To the ancient Egyptians, these forces were not accidental features of the world. They were divine presences. By personifying them, the Egyptians acknowledged their importance while giving them roles within a grand cosmological structure. Shu, the god of air, was often depicted as a man with a single feather on his head. This feather symbolized the lightness of air, the breath of existence, the invisible but essential substance that separated earth from sky. Shu's domain extended from the ground upward, creating space, movement, and life. His presence allowed the world to expand. Before Shu, everything was pressed together. After Shu, distance became possible. Separation became possible. Growth, sound, and breath became possible. Tefnut, the goddess of moisture, was equally essential. She was often depicted as a woman with the head of a lioness, symbolizing the dual nature of moisture, life-giving and potentially destructive. Water nurtures crops, fills the Nile, quenches thirst, and sustains every living creature. Yet water can also erode, drown, and overwhelm. Tefnut embodied both these aspects. She was the gentle dew at sunrise and the fierce storm rolling across the desert sky. Both deities were portrayed as twins, complementary forces emerging from Atum's essence. They were the first divine pair and the first step in the process of establishing cosmic balance. In Egyptian cosmology, balance, known as Ma'at, was not just a moral ideal but a natural principle that held the universe together. Shu and Tefnut represented the initial division of the cosmos into different functional domains. Air and moisture began the delicate interplay that would later allow earth and sky to flourish. The creation of Shu and Tefnut is described in various symbolic ways throughout Egyptian texts. Sometimes Atum produces them by spitting. Sometimes he sneezes. In other versions, they emerge from bodily fluids associated with self-generation. While modern thinkers might interpret these depictions as strange, to ancient Egyptians they conveyed something profound. Creation came from intimacy, from the body, from the most personal and essential parts of existence. The universe is not distant or mechanical. It is deeply connected to life, breath, birth, and physicality. Once Shu and Tefnut emerged, Atum sent them out into the formless world to begin establishing order. But what they encountered was not immediately welcoming. They entered the depths beyond the primordial mound, venturing into regions where form and structure had not yet taken hold. This journey reflects the Egyptians' belief that creation was not instantaneous. Order had to be sought, shaped, and maintained. Shu and Tefnut did not merely appear and instantly transform the world. They explored the universe, their presence beginning to influence its transformation. As Shu began to fill the world with air, he created the space between things. Before Shu, everything was compressed. His presence allowed the formation of distance between earth and sky, between land and water, between gods and humans. Space itself became a divine gift, not empty but filled with meaning. With air came sound, breath, movement, the whisper of wind across the desert, the rustle of reeds by the Nile, the subtle pressure of heat and cold. The Egyptians understood air not simply as a substance, but as a medium through which life expresses itself. Tefnut's role in shaping the universe was equally profound. She introduced moisture into the world, enabling the cycles of condensation and evaporation that made rain, dew, and humidity possible. Moisture softened the primordial mound, making it fertile. Water gave life the potential to flourish. Without her, there could be no lakes, no rivers, no clouds, no vegetation. Her presence introduced hydration, flow, and nourishment. Even the gods relied on Tefnut, as moisture symbolized fluidity, healing, and the ability to adapt. The Egyptians maintained that Shu and Tefnut were not merely physical forces. They also represented emotional and spiritual concepts. Shu was associated with vitality, clarity, and the breath of life. Tefnut was linked to warmth, wetness, affection, and emotional nourishment. Together they established the first dynamic balance within the universe, the interplay between what fills space and what saturates it. Their journey into the unformed regions of the cosmos was not without consequence. One of the most important and touching episodes in early Egyptian mythology involves Atum's anxiety over his children. After creating Shu and Tefnut, Atum realized he did not know where they had gone. The universe was still dark and unstructured. and he feared they might be lost forever in the undefined spaces beyond creation. In some versions, Atum sends out his eye, a powerful divine entity, to find them. This eye, often personified as a goddess in her own right, becomes a symbol of divine search, protection, and attachment. When Shu and Tefnut finally return to Atum, it marks a triumphant moment in Egyptian mythology. Atum rejoices, and in some traditions he weeps tears of happiness. From these tears, humanity is said to have been born, symbolizing that humans emerged from a moment of relief, joy, and emotional reconnection. This powerful image reveals the Egyptians' profound understanding of emotion within their mythological framework. The world does not simply form mechanically, it evolves through relationships, bonds, and the emotional reactions of divine beings. Shu and Tefnut's return also allowed the next stage of creation to take place. With air and moisture now present, the conditions were set for earth and sky to emerge. Shu and Tefnut would become the parents of two essential deities, whose presence would shape the entire structure of the cosmos. Geb, the god of earth, and Nut, the goddess of the sky. Their legacy extended far beyond their immediate offspring. The Egyptians invoked Shu in ceremonies involving purification, space, breath, and clarity. They invoked Tefnut in rituals involving rain, healing, fertility, and emotional restoration. Together they formed the second generation of divine forces, establishing balance, structure, and movement in a cosmos that had previously been silent and still. In the earliest moments of Egyptian creation mythology, long before the great temples stood along the Nile and ages before kings carved their names into stone, the gods themselves were still discovering their place in a universe that was just beginning to take shape. After Atum brought forth Shu and Tefnut from within himself, these two deities ventured into the vast unformed regions beyond the primordial mound. Inside this early cosmos, darkness still dominated, and the world was far from the structured reality that later gods and humans would know. Their absence set the stage for one of the most profound and emotionally resonant episodes in Egyptian mythology, the moment when Atum weeps and humanity is born. Atum, the self-created one, was alone on the primordial mound. His children had gone out to explore the still chaotic void. While Atum was a god of immense power, he was not immune to feelings of isolation. For a being who had brought himself into existence, the companionship of Shu and Tefnut was deeply significant. Their absence stirred a sense of longing and concern within him. The early universe was a place of uncertainty, and even divine beings could become lost within its undefined spaces. The Egyptians envisioned this not simply as a physical separation, but as an emotional one. Atum felt the absence of his children as a profound loneliness, a yearning for connection. The myth emphasizes that even the first god, complete and self-contained, experienced emotional vulnerability. This was an important detail for the Egyptians, who saw their gods not as distant, untouchable forces, but as beings who possessed emotions that mirrored those of humans. The cosmos was not created through cold mechanical processes, but through moments of despair, joy, fear, and relief. Realizing his children were gone and unable to hear or feel them, Atum became deeply distressed. He feared that the vastness of the cosmos, still undefined and unshaped, might swallow them forever. To find them, he sent out his eye, one of the most enigmatic and powerful entities in Egyptian mythology. Atum's eye was not simply a physical organ, but a living divine force. Sometimes described as a fierce goddess, sometimes as a radiant light, the eye embodied both protection and wrath. It represented Atum's watchful presence, his ability to seek, search, and see across the limitless waters of Nun. The eye searched tirelessly through the darkness, traveling through the formless expanses where structures had not yet emerged. Its journey symbolized the first act of exploration within the cosmos. By sending out the eye, Atum extended his awareness beyond the primordial mound, creating the first connection between himself and the wider universe. This act reflects the Egyptians' understanding that creation requires both structure and attention. Something must look, seek, and reach outward. Eventually, Shu and Tefnut were found. Whether they were lost, wandering, or simply distant varies depending on the version of the myth, but what remains consistent is the emotional impact of their return. When the eye brought them back to Atum, the relief he experienced was overwhelming. In this moment of intense emotion, Atum's eyes filled with tears. As they fell upon the primordial mound, each tear transformed into a human being. This poetic transformation is one of the most beautiful and symbolic elements in Egyptian mythology. Humans, according to this myth, did not come from clay, from blood, from the earth, or from animals. They emerged from tears shed out of love, concern, and joy. This concept elevates humanity, giving every person a place within the emotional landscape of divine creation. Humans were not accidents. They were not punishments. They were not molded as servants. They were born from a god's relief and happiness. The Egyptians carried this symbolism deeply into their culture. The belief that humans came from tears created an intrinsic link between humanity and emotion. It suggested that humans were capable of feeling deeply because they originated from emotion. Just as Atum felt sorrow and joy, so too would humans feel a spectrum of emotions. This gave emotions sacred significance. Tears were not signs of weakness, but expressions of profound divine connection. The association between tears and life also reflected observations of nature. The Nile, which the Egyptians relied on for survival, ebbed and flowed with seasonal floods. They saw water as the source of life. Tears, being a form of water, symbolized the same nourishing potential. The idea that human life came from tears aligned perfectly with the natural cycles Egyptians observed every year. From water comes life, and from emotion comes humanity. The return of Shu and Tefnut also reaffirmed the importance of balance and harmony in the cosmos. With these two foundational powers restored to Atum's side, the universe could continue to unfold in an orderly manner. Air and moisture were now both present, making it possible for the next stage of creation to occur. The world still lacked form, but the essential conditions for structure had been established. Atum's tears did more than produce humanity. They marked the moment when emotional experience entered the universe. The gods would continue to experience feelings: love, jealousy, anger, compassion, sorrow. And these emotions would shape the myths of Osiris, Isis, Ra, Hathor, and many others. Human emotions were not merely reflections of divine ones. They were direct inheritances from them. The story of Atum's tears also highlights the Egyptian view of the relationship between gods and humans. Humans were not seen as distant from the gods, but as intimately connected to them. Humanity existed because the gods cared, because Atum cared. This belief placed a responsibility on humans to uphold Ma'at, the balance and harmony that the gods worked so hard to establish. Living in accordance with Ma'at wasn't merely obedience. It was a way to honor the emotional origins of human life. Another layer of significance lies in the eye's role. When Atum sent the eye to find Shu and Tefnut, the eye performed an act of divine intervention that would later become central to many myths. The eye of Ra, for instance, would take on fierce and protective qualities in stories involving rebellion, punishment, and restoration. The eye's independent personality and power were so significant that it sometimes acted beyond the control of its creator. In some myths, the eye became angry when Atum created a replacement for it, illustrating how divine tools could develop agency. But in this early creation stage, the eye's role was one of guidance, searching, and reunification. The Egyptians treasured this myth because it explained not only the origin of humanity, but also the existence of compassion, longing, and reunion. It connected human emotion with cosmic creation and presented a worldview in which the universe was born from both power and vulnerability. With Shu and Tefnut restored to Atum's side, the universe was ready to grow further. The next generation of gods, Geb and Nut, would bring structure to the cosmos in a way that defined the fundamental layout of the world. With Shu and Tefnut reunited with Atum, the universe was finally ready for its next monumental transformation. Air and moisture now had their place in creation, forming the basic environmental conditions needed for more defined structures to emerge. The darkness that once filled the cosmos began to shift. And from the interplay of Shu's air and Tefnut's moisture came two of the most important deities in the entire Egyptian pantheon: Geb, the god of the earth, and Nut, the goddess of the sky. Their existence would set the physical framework of the world, giving shape to the cosmos and creating the essential division between the heavens above and the land below. Geb and Nut were born as twins, just like their parents Shu and Tefnut, and yet their roles were utterly distinct. Geb embodied the entire earth. His body was the soil, the mountains, the valleys, the fertile plains, and even the hidden minerals beneath the ground. Nut, on the other hand, formed the sky, an arched canopy stretching protectively over the world, painted with stars, clouds, and the endless expanse of the heavens. Together they formed the basic architecture of existence in the Egyptian worldview. But the way the Egyptians imagined them adds depth to their mythological and symbolic power. Geb was often depicted lying on his back, body filled with greenery and life, while Nut was shown arching above him, her body decorated with stars as though she carried the night across her skin. Shu, their father, stood between them, lifting Nut upward and keeping them separate. This image appears again and again in Egyptian art because it communicates the fundamental structure of reality: the sky above, the earth below, and the air that separates and connects them, before Shu lifted Nut away. However, Geb and Nut were inseparable. In early creation, they clung to one another tightly. This closeness, this intimacy, represented the undivided state of the cosmos. Everything was still compressed, still merged, still too tightly bound to allow for the full development of life and order. Geb and Nut's embrace symbolizes a universe that had not yet taken shape, a world still waiting for its boundaries and laws to be established. Atum recognized that to create a functional world, this eternal embrace had to be separated. Without space between earth and sky, no living creatures could reside between them. Without distance, no light could travel, no vegetation could grow, no winds could move, and no rhythms of day and night could unfold. The world needed structure, layers, and hierarchy, and so Atum commanded Shu to lift Nut into the heavens and press Geb downward into the earth. This separation was not a punishment but a necessity for creation. In Egyptian mythology, separation is often accompanied by sorrow, longing, and the recognition of sacrifice for the sake of order. When Shu lifted Nut, the two lovers were torn apart, and their yearning for each other became part of the natural cycles of the world. Their separation created the conditions for day and night, rain cycles, fertility, and the eternal rhythm of life and death. Nut's position above the world was not simply about distance, it was about protection. The Egyptians envisioned the sky as a great celestial being whose body stretched across the heavens, shielding the earth from the chaotic forces beyond the cosmos. Nut's body was the barrier that kept the waters of none from crashing down and reclaiming creation. Her arched form was not passive, she actively held back the void. Her posture represented the constant vigilance required to protect life. Nut was the great mother, not only to the gods she would later bear, but to all existence that thrived beneath her. Geb, in turn, was the stable foundation. The Egyptians saw the earth not as inert matter, but as a living, breathing god. His laughter caused earthquakes. His tears created springs and rivers. His body was the fertile soil that fed humanity. He brought nourishment from below as Nut brought protection from above. The world was imagined as held lovingly between two divine beings whose roles shaped every aspect of existence. Their relationship, defined by separation yet filled with eternal attraction, explains many natural phenomena in Egyptian thought. Rainfall, for example, was viewed as Nut's tears for Geb. Dew on the ground in the morning was considered a sign of their connection. The cycle of the sun rising and setting was interpreted as Nut swallowing the sun at night and giving birth to it again in the morning. Everything humans observed in nature became part of the ongoing story between earth and sky. The children of Geb and Nut would go on to form some of the most influential gods of Egyptian mythology. They gave birth to Osiris, Isis, Seth, and Nephthys, deities whose stories would define Egyptian religion for thousands of years. This makes Geb and Nut not only foundational cosmic beings, but the parents of divine forces that shape kingship, magic, morality, agriculture, and the underworld. Their roles stretch far beyond the physical. They are at the heart of Egyptian theology. Nut, in particular, held a special place in the Egyptian understanding of death. Egyptians believed that when a person died, Nut received them into her star-filled body. A newly departed soul would be welcomed into the sky goddess, held gently and transformed into a star. This belief offered comfort. Death was not an end, but a transition into Nut's embrace. Many coffin lids were decorated with images of Nut, often painted above the deceased as if she were leaning over them protectively. This reflected the deeply emotional connection the Egyptians felt toward the sky goddess. Geb's role extended into kingship and earthly authority. Pharaohs were sometimes referred to as the inheritors of Geb's throne. Because Geb represented the earth itself, ruling over its resources and fertility, the king was thought to share in this divine heritage. The legitimacy of a pharaoh's rule depended in part on maintaining harmony with Geb. Agriculture, stability, and order were Geb's gifts, and the proper rituals ensured that these blessings continued. The story of Geb and Nut also reveals something essential about the Egyptian worldview. Creation is not a single moment but an ongoing process. The gods themselves reflect natural cycles. Earth and sky are not static. They interact, influence, and shape the world continuously. By personifying these forces, the Egyptians acknowledged that the physical world is alive and infused with divine presence. Geb and Nut's separation by Shu created the first true structure of the cosmos. It defined where life could exist and how natural cycles would unfold. It introduced order, space, light, and time. From their existence came the rhythms that still govern our world today. Sunrise and sunset, fertility and drought, the turning of seasons, the stability of earth beneath us and the vastness of sky above. From the union of Geb, the earth, and Nut, the sky, came a new generation of gods who would reshape Egyptian belief and define some of the most influential mythologies in world history. Among them, none would carry a legacy as enduring, as spiritually rich, or as culturally transformative as Osiris. His story would become the backbone of Egyptian religion, touching everything from kingship and agriculture to morality and the afterlife. Osiris was not just another deity, he became the model for righteous rule, the symbol of resurrection, and the ultimate guide for the soul's final journey. Osiris was born into a cosmos that had only recently found structure. Before his arrival, the universe had been shaped by the essential separation of Geb and Nut, with the sky lifted above the earth and the first form of order established by the earlier generations. Osiris entered into a world ready for civilization, ready for culture, and ready for meaning. And it was Osiris who would bring these things into human life. In Egyptian tradition, Osiris was considered the first divine king to rule over humanity. He was said to have inherited the throne of Geb, becoming the rightful sovereign of the world. As ruler, Osiris was not a warlike or distant god. Instead, he was compassionate, wise, and profoundly committed to raising humanity from chaos into harmony. Under his rule, people learned agriculture, law, spiritual practice, and the principles of community. He taught them how to live not just for themselves, but for the larger order of society. This role made Osiris the patron god of civilization itself. Before his guidance, humans were imagined as wandering beings without structure or culture. Osiris gave them crops to cultivate, rituals to follow, and values to uphold. He transformed mere existence into a way of life. In this sense, he is much like other culture bringers seen across mythologies, but in Egypt his role became far more expansive. Osiris became the symbol of everything that rises, grows, and flourishes, both in the fields and in the human heart. His association with agriculture was especially powerful. Just as the Nile flooded each year, bringing life to the land after a period of dryness, Osiris came to represent the cycles of death and rebirth that governed the natural world. The Egyptians saw the sprouting of seeds, the renewal of fields, and the rhythms of the seasons as direct reflections of Osiris's power. He embodied the promise that life could emerge from death, that loss could be followed by renewal, and that order could triumph over chaos. However, Osiris's story is not one of endless peace. His life and legacy were shaped by profound conflict, and by one of the most dramatic episodes in Egyptian mythology. Osiris's younger brother Seth would come to resent him deeply. While Osiris embodied harmony, justice, and continuity, Seth represented force, unpredictability, drought, storm, and the disruptive elements of nature. Yet Seth was not initially evil. He was a necessary force. But the balance between the two brothers would eventually fracture. The tension between them reflected a universal theme in Egyptian cosmology: order versus chaos, harmony versus disruption. Osiris's reign, though perfect in its early glory, threatened Seth's sense of power. Over time, jealousy and ambition grew within Seth until he devised a plan to overthrow his brother. He invited Osiris to a feast, offering a beautifully decorated chest, crafted with exquisite precision, to anyone who could fit inside it perfectly. When Osiris lay down in the chest, discovering that it fit him exactly, Seth slammed the lid closed, sealed it with molten lead, and cast it into the Nile. This moment, Osiris's betrayal and death, reshaped Egyptian belief forever. The death of Osiris was not merely a tragedy, it was a cosmic turning point. It revealed that even gods could suffer, that even divinity could be subject to loss, and that even the forces of order were vulnerable to disruption. Osiris's death also highlighted an essential characteristic of Egyptian mythology. Creation and continuity demand sacrifice, and even the most righteous beings must face trials. But Osiris's story did not end with death. In many traditions, death is the final boundary, the end of all earthly stories. In Egypt, Osiris became the bridge between life and what lies beyond. After he was cast away, his devoted wife Isis recovered his body and used her unmatched magical abilities to restore his essence. Her love for Osiris, her determination, and her mastery of divine arts brought him back, not to the world of the living, but to a new and exalted role. Osiris became the first being to undergo resurrection. His revival was not a return to his old life, but an elevation into something more profound. He became the ruler of the afterlife, the sovereign of the Duat, the judge who would oversee the fate of every soul after death. His throne was no longer on the earthly plane, but in the spiritual realm where all mortals would eventually travel. As the god of the afterlife, Osiris presided over the judgment of the dead. The heart of every person would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the principle of truth and balance. Osiris stood at the center of this ritual, serene and unmovable, ensuring that justice prevailed beyond the world of the living. To the Egyptians, he was the model for what they hoped to become after death, a purified, renewed, and eternal being. This transformation gave Osiris a dual nature. He was both the symbol of fertility and the lord of the dead. He governed growth and decay, beginnings and endings. He was the promise of renewal in both the fields and the spirit. His myth reassured Egyptians that death was not final, that life continued in a new form, and that the divine order extended beyond earthly existence. Osiris's story also influenced kingship in profound ways. Every pharaoh was seen as an embodiment of Horus, the son of Osiris. Upon a king's death, he became Osiris himself, joining the lineage of divine rulers in the afterlife. This cycle reflected the perpetual renewal of kingship, just as the Nile renewed the land each year. Osiris thus formed the ideological foundation of the Egyptian monarchy. Across thousands of years, Osiris remained at the heart of Egyptian spirituality. His temples were places of profound devotion. His festivals celebrated renewal and rebirth, and his mythology shaped rituals surrounding burial and resurrection. Coffins were often decorated with green to symbolize his regenerative power. Funerary texts invoked his protection. And the very landscape of Egypt, its river, its crops, its cycles, seemed to echo his presence. Osiris is not just a figure from ancient myth. He represents a timeless human longing, the hope that goodness matters, that justice prevails, that love endures, and that life transcends death. In his story, the Egyptians found comfort, meaning, and a guiding moral path. Osiris became the eternal king who, even after suffering betrayal and death, rose to oversee the destiny of souls and maintain cosmic balance. Among all the gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt, there is perhaps no figure more deeply revered, more widely worshipped, or more profoundly influential than Isis. Her presence extended far beyond the boundaries of Egypt, spreading into Greece, Rome, and even parts of Europe centuries after the last pharaoh ruled the Nile. She was a goddess of extraordinary complexity, simultaneously a mother, a magician, a queen, a protector, and a living embodiment of devotion and power. In many ways, Isis was the heartbeat of Egyptian spirituality, the soul of divine femininity, and the eternal symbol of love's ability to reshape destiny. To understand Isis, we must begin with her origins. Born to Geb, the earth god, and Nut, the sky goddess, she belonged to the great Ennead of Heliopolis, the 9 foundational deities who shaped the universe. From birth, she was surrounded by cosmic significance. Her lineage gave her a place at the center of divine order, and yet her role would expand far beyond anything that her parents or siblings represented. Isis would become a goddess, not simply of one domain, but of nearly every aspect of life. Fertility, protection, motherhood, kingship, magic, healing, and even resurrection. Unlike many goddesses of the ancient world, Isis was not distant or specialized. Instead, she represented a powerful and accessible form of divine care. People saw her as a mother figure even if they had no children. They saw her as a protector even if they were not threatened. They called upon her for healing, for guidance, for comfort, and for strength. She was a goddess who walked closely with humanity. Her character was defined above all by her devotion to Osiris. The love story between Isis and Osiris is one of the most enduring in world mythology. It is not romanticized in a modern way, but rather depicted as a profound spiritual bond rooted in loyalty, responsibility, and cosmic harmony. Isis stood beside Osiris not merely as his queen, but as his greatest defender, his loyal companion, and his partner in shaping human civilization. When Osiris ruled the world and brought agriculture, law, and culture to humanity, Isis stood at his side as queen. Their partnership represented an ideal, the perfect union of masculine and feminine principles working together to maintain harmony. But it was only when tragedy fell upon Osiris that Isis's true power and purpose would be revealed. When Seth murdered Osiris and sealed his body in a chest, casting it into the Nile, Isis began a journey that would define her place in mythology forever. Her response to this catastrophe was not despair, it was determination. She traveled across Egypt, searching tirelessly for the chest that held Osiris's remains. Her quest was fueled by an unwavering belief that death was not the final word, that darkness could not extinguish the light of what had been just and righteous. Eventually, she located the chest and reclaimed Osiris's body. But her work was not finished. Seth, enraged by her success, stole the body again, dismembering it into pieces and scattering them throughout the land. This act was meant to be final. It was meant to destroy Osiris completely. But Isis refused to accept this outcome. She transformed grief into action and sorrow into purpose. She traveled to every corner of Egypt, searching for each piece of Osiris's body. Wherever she found a fragment, she honored it, mourned it, and restored it with care. The Egyptians believed that this journey by Isis created sacred places throughout the land, marking the spots where each piece had been recovered. These places became centers of worship, reminders of the goddess's devotion and resilience. Through her mastery of magic, Heka, the divine force that shapes reality, Isis reassembled Osiris. She breathed life back into him, not to return him to the realm of the living, but to restore him in a new and powerful form. Osiris became the ruler of the afterlife, the eternal king of the Duat, and this resurrection was made possible by Isis alone. The magic of Isis was not merely supernatural force, it was the expression of her love, intelligence, and spiritual authority. She was known as the most powerful magician among the gods, capable of actions beyond even the abilities of Ra, Atum, or Thoth. In one famous myth, she learns the secret name of Ra himself, a name that holds the essence of his power, demonstrating not arrogance but her unmatched mastery of divine wisdom. Knowledge, for Isis, was not a tool for domination, but a way to bring protection and healing to the world. Her greatest act of creation was the conception of her son, Horus. After resurrecting Osiris, she used magic to conceive the child who would one day avenge his father and restore order to the cosmos. In this moment, Isis became the divine archetype of motherhood, nurturing, protective, yet fiercely determined. She hid Horus in the marshes of the Nile Delta, shielding him from Seth, who sought to destroy the rightful heir to the throne. The stories of Isis raising Horus depict her as a mother who faced danger, hardship, and constant fear, but who never faltered. She used her magic to heal him when he was poisoned. She defended him from serpents, crocodiles, and spirits sent by Seth. Her motherhood was active, courageous, and deeply spiritual. It symbolized the protective nature of women, the resilience of human love, and the divine qualities of care and sacrifice. Because of her devotion to Horus and Osiris, Isis became the protector of all pharaohs. Each pharaoh was seen as the living embodiment of Horus, and Isis was therefore the spiritual mother of every king. Temples honored her not just as a goddess, but as the guiding force behind Egyptian rulership. Her image, seated with an infant Horus on her lap, became one of the most iconic symbols in ancient art, inspiring later imagery even beyond Egypt's borders. Isis was also deeply connected to funerary practices. Just as she restored Osiris's body, she was believed to assist in the preparation of the dead, guiding souls safely into the afterlife. Priests performing rituals of mummification invoked her name for protection. Tomb inscriptions called upon her to embrace the deceased as she had embraced Osiris. Her association with resurrection gave people hope that death was not the end. Her cult spread widely because her qualities resonated universally. She was compassionate, powerful, wise, and accessible. People from all walks of life, nobles, farmers, merchants, and even foreigners, worshipped her. They prayed to her for fertility, healing, safe childbirth, guidance, and protection from danger. She was the mother of the pharaohs and the guardian of the common people alike. The reverence for Isis continued long after the decline of ancient Egyptian civilization. Temples dedicated to her remained active into the Roman Empire. Her worship spread across the Mediterranean world, influencing later religious traditions and shaping ideas about divine femininity for centuries. Isis stands not only as a figure of myth, but as a symbol of perseverance, intelligence, love, and spiritual transformation. She is the goddess who refused to surrender to despair, the mother who protected her child against overwhelming odds, and the magician whose power transcended death itself. Through her, the Egyptians found comfort, guidance, and hope, believing that love combined with wisdom could overcome even the darkest forces in the cosmos. Horus, one of the most recognizable and enduring gods in Egyptian mythology, occupies a central role in the pantheon as both a deity of kingship and a symbol of cosmic order. Born of Isis and the resurrected Osiris, Horus represents continuity, legitimacy, and the triumph of order over chaos. Unlike some gods who govern natural phenomena, Horus's significance lies in his embodiment of power, justice, and protection, qualities that resonate deeply with the Egyptian understanding of rulership and social harmony. From his birth, Horus's existence was intertwined with danger and destiny. As the son of Osiris, he was the rightful heir to the throne of Egypt. But the throne was already coveted by Seth, the god of chaos, storms, and disorder. Seth's envy and ambition made Horus a target from the very beginning. Ancient texts describe Horus's infancy as a period of constant threat, where Isis used her immense magic to shield him from Seth's attempts at destruction. These stories emphasize the protective and nurturing aspect of motherhood while highlighting that divine succession is not merely a matter of birthright, but of overcoming challenges and asserting moral authority. Horus is most famously depicted as a falcon or a man with a falcon's head. The falcon is not just an aesthetic choice. It symbolizes sharp vision, swiftness, and the ability to rise above earthly chaos. Horus's eyes, in particular, became iconic in Egyptian symbolism. The Eye of Horus, or Wadjet, represents protection, healing, and restoration. Its significance extends from myth to everyday life. Egyptians would wear amulets bearing the Eye of Horus to guard against danger, to ensure health, and to preserve wholeness. In a sense, Horus's perception and vigilance became a source of security for humanity, illustrating how the attributes of gods were integrated into daily life. Horus's confrontation with Seth is one of the most elaborate and enduring narratives in Egyptian mythology. This struggle, often referred to as the contendings of Horus and Seth, is a story of justice, strategy, and cosmic balance. Rather than a simple tale of physical combat, the conflict involves legal disputes, magical contests, and psychological maneuvering. The Egyptians framed these stories not merely as entertainment, but as allegories for the eternal struggle between order and chaos. Horus, embodying rightful authority and divine justice, must navigate these challenges to secure stability for the world. In these myths, Horus often undergoes transformation and trials. He suffers injuries, loses and regains his eyesight, and faces entrapment or deceit. These trials symbolize the vulnerability inherent in power and the necessity of perseverance. In one prominent story, Horus's eye is gouged out by Seth during a battle. The injury represents the temporary disruption of order and insight, but the eye is restored by Thoth, the god of wisdom and magic. This restoration carries profound symbolic weight. Even when order is challenged and knowledge is temporarily lost, divine intervention ensures balance is ultimately maintained. The cycle of injury and healing becomes a metaphor for life itself, loss, recovery, and the constant striving to uphold truth and justice. Beyond his conflict with Seth, Horus's influence extends into the realm of kingship. Pharaohs were considered the earthly embodiment of Horus during their reign. Each king was Horus incarnate, the living representation of divine authority on earth. This identification was not merely ceremonial. It carried profound political and spiritual implications. The pharaoh's role was to maintain Ma'at, the cosmic order that ensured harmony between gods, humans, and nature. By aligning themselves with Horus, rulers legitimized their power while signaling their duty to preserve balance, justice, and prosperity. Temples, inscriptions, and royal iconography consistently reinforced this association. making Horus's presence both a divine and social anchor. Horus's connection to the sky, inherited from his lineage, emphasizes his cosmic significance. As the son of Nut and Geb, he bridges the earth and heavens. His falcon imagery underscores this connection, soaring high above the world and observing the unfolding of events. This duality, earthly authority and celestial oversight, demonstrates how the Egyptians conceived of divine power as encompassing both the tangible and intangible. Horus's presence ensures that actions on the ground align with the greater cosmic plan. Horus is also central to ideas of resurrection and continuity. By avenging Osiris, restoring order after Seth's disruption, and assuming the throne of Egypt, Horus ensures the perpetuation of life and authority. His myth embodies the cyclical nature of time in Egyptian thought. Death leads to renewal, chaos challenges order, and divine will restores equilibrium. This cyclical understanding is mirrored in natural phenomena. The Nile's flooding, the changing seasons, and the regular movement of the sun across the sky. Horus's story reinforces the principle that balance must be actively maintained, and that legitimate power arises from perseverance, wisdom, and moral integrity. The Eye of Horus also became a potent symbol of protection in both life and death. Amulets, jewelry, and temple decorations frequently depicted the eye, believed to guard against evil forces and ensure the restoration of physical and spiritual wholeness. In funerary practices, the symbol was employed to safeguard the deceased on their journey through the afterlife. The eye's dual significance, both practical and symbolic, demonstrates the Egyptians' seamless integration of mythology into everyday experience and ritual. Horus's association with kingship, justice, and protection is complemented by his roles in navigation and warfare. The Egyptians recognized the importance of strategic thinking, foresight, and the ability to act decisively, qualities reflected in Horus's falcon form. His vision, both literal and symbolic, represented the need for clarity and leadership, the ability to anticipate challenges, and the commitment to uphold justice even when faced with formidable opposition. Horus's myth also underscores the interconnectedness of the gods. His story cannot be separated from Osiris, Isis, Seth, and other deities such as Thoth and Hathor. These interwoven narratives highlight the Egyptians' understanding of the world as a complex web of relationships, where power, morality, and destiny depend on interaction, negotiation, and balance. Horus's victories, struggles, and actions are always part of a larger cosmic pattern, reflecting the Egyptians' belief that human and divine worlds are deeply intertwined. Ultimately, Horus embodies the principles that Egyptians held most dear: justice, rightful authority, protection, vigilance, and restoration. His narrative resonates not only as a myth of conflict and triumph, but as a template for life, leadership, and ethical conduct. Through his trials and successes, Horus exemplifies the ongoing effort required to maintain order, the resilience necessary to overcome adversity, and the enduring connection between the divine and human realms. Seth, sometimes spelled Set, is one of the most complex, enigmatic, and misunderstood deities in Egyptian mythology. Unlike many gods whose attributes are clearly benevolent or nurturing, Seth embodies duality. He is both essential and disruptive, powerful and dangerous, feared yet necessary. As the god of chaos, storms, deserts, and disorder, Seth represents the forces that challenge order, provoke change, and test the stability of the universe. His role is pivotal not simply as an antagonist, but as a force that defines the boundaries of balance and underscores the need for harmony in creation. Seth's origins are deeply entwined with the lineage of the Ennead. He is the son of Geb, the earth god, and Nut, the sky goddess, and therefore the brother of Osiris, Isis, and Nephthys. From birth, Seth's presence within the divine family introduced tension and contrast. While Osiris embodied harmony, civilization, and agricultural prosperity, Seth represented the untamed, wild, and unpredictable aspects of existence. This familial duality reflects the Egyptians' understanding of the world. Order and chaos are not enemies to be eliminated, but complementary forces that must be balanced. Seth is often depicted in a distinctive and unmistakable form, known as the Seth animal. This mysterious creature has a long, curved snout, upright rectangular ears, a forked tail, and a canine-like body. No real animal corresponds precisely to this form, emphasizing Seth's association with the unnatural, the liminal, and the chaotic. The Egyptians used this image to convey the god's unpredictability and otherworldly power. He is a being that straddles boundaries, neither fully one thing nor another, and his presence reminds mortals and gods alike that life is not always orderly. Seth's most famous myth involves his rivalry with Osiris. While Osiris represented order and legitimate rule, Seth embodied ambition, envy, and disruption. His murder of Osiris is both shocking and deeply symbolic. Seth's actions demonstrate that even within the divine order, tension and conflict exist. The Egyptians understood that natural and social systems are vulnerable to instability, and Seth's presence was a personification of those threats. Chaos is not inherently evil in Egyptian thought. It is a necessary counterbalance to creation, a reminder that vigilance, justice, and resilience are required to maintain harmony. After murdering Osiris and scattering his body, Seth's actions plunged the cosmos into disorder. The world, which had begun to stabilize through Atum, Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Nut, and Osiris, faced upheaval. This narrative conveys the Egyptians' understanding of natural and societal disruption. Floods, droughts, disease, political upheaval, and conflict were all part of the cycle of order and chaos. Seth's myth is a symbolic explanation for these phenomena, giving divine context to experiences that were otherwise unpredictable and threatening. Despite his destructive tendencies, Seth is not purely malevolent. He is a god of strength, protection, and defense in certain contexts. For example, in later Egyptian mythology, Seth becomes the protector of Ra, the sun god, during his nightly journey through the underworld. He defends the sun against Apep, the serpent of chaos, using his formidable power to maintain cosmic balance. This duality emphasizes that Seth's chaos is not destructive for its own sake. It can also be a force that strengthens the universe, a tool for maintaining equilibrium when used appropriately. Seth's domain extends beyond mythological narratives into the natural world. He governs deserts, storms, and violent winds, embodying the untamed and dangerous aspects of the environment. While the fertile Nile Valley sustained life, the deserts beyond its borders were harsh, unpredictable, and threatening. Seth's presence as the god of these spaces served as a reminder of nature's duality. It nourishes and sustains, but it can also challenge, punish, and reshape. Survival requires respect for these forces. Just as the Egyptians respected Seth's power within the divine pantheon, the Egyptians also associated Seth with foreigners and outsiders, often representing those who lived beyond the borders of Egypt. This further illustrates his role as a liminal figure, existing at the edge of society and the natural world, embodying the unknown, the strange, and the challenging. Yet even as a symbol of external threat, Seth remained a necessary figure within the cosmic order. He highlighted the contrast between the secure, structured world and the unpredictable, dangerous elements that surround it. Seth's conflict with Horus, Osiris's son, is another essential aspect of his narrative. Following Osiris's death, Horus and Seth engage in a long, complex struggle for the throne of Egypt. This battle is not just physical. It includes legal disputes, cunning strategies, and magical contests. The Egyptians framed this conflict as a cosmic trial. The forces of chaos versus the forces of order, legitimacy versus ambition, disruption versus stability. Through this myth, the Egyptians conveyed profound moral and social lessons. They recognized that authority must be earned, that conflict is sometimes inevitable, and that balance requires negotiation and restraint. The outcome of the struggle varies in different texts, but typically Horus ultimately prevails and assumes the throne, establishing continuity and justice. Seth, however, is not destroyed. Instead, he is reintegrated into the divine order, often taking on protective and stabilizing roles. This resolution illustrates the Egyptian view of duality. Chaos is never entirely eliminated, and disruption can be transformed into service. Seth's survival and reintegration show that both order and disorder are necessary for the universe to function. Without Seth, the balance of forces would be incomplete, just as life without challenge would be stagnant. Seth's presence also had a moral dimension for human society. His myths remind humans that envy, aggression, and unpredictability exist within all beings, including the divine. They teach that these traits must be acknowledged, understood, and managed. By personifying chaos, the Egyptians provided a framework for moral reflection and social governance, linking human behavior with divine archetypes. Rituals, prayers, and festivals often invoked Seth to appease or channel his power, ensuring that his energy supported rather than disrupted life. Beyond mythology, Seth's iconography, rituals, and worship had practical functions. Temples and statues depicted him in his distinctive form to invoke protection, strength, and authority. He was sometimes called upon in combat and defense, highlighting his dual role as both threat and guardian. Amulets bearing his image reminded people of the delicate balance between stability and danger, teaching vigilance and respect. In essence, Seth embodies the principle that chaos and order are interdependent. He is a god of disruption whose presence ensures that structure is not static, that vigilance is necessary, and that balance is an ongoing process. His myths provide lessons about power, morality, resilience, and the delicate dance between stability and change. Seth's complexity makes him one of the most enduring and thought-provoking figures in Egyptian mythology, demonstrating that divinity encompasses both creation and challenge, nurturing and destruction. Nephthys, the often understated yet profoundly significant goddess of ancient Egypt, is a figure whose role complements and contrasts with her more famous sister, Isis. As a member of the Ennead of Heliopolis, Nephthys was born to Geb, the god of the earth, and Nut, the sky goddess, making her the sibling of Osiris, Isis, and Seth. While she does not always command the same level of attention as Isis or Horus, her presence is essential to the balance of the divine family, the cycles of life and death, and the protection of both gods and humans. Nephthys is frequently depicted as a woman with hieroglyphic symbols above her head, representing her name, or as a figure adorned with wings in funerary art. She is associated with darkness, night, protection, and mourning. Unlike her sister, Isis, who embodies nurturing, life-giving energy and proactive magic, Nephthys often operates behind the scenes, attending to subtler yet equally crucial aspects of divine and human life. She represents the quiet vigilance that ensures the proper functioning of the cosmos, even when events are chaotic or dangerous. One of Nephthys's most critical roles is in relation to her brother Osiris. While Seth murders Osiris and Isis undertakes the arduous quest to restore him, Nephthys acts as a supportive and protective figure. She assists in recovering Osiris's dismembered body and helps prepare it for resurrection. This act of loyalty demonstrates her dedication to family and cosmic order, even when she herself does not receive recognition or glory. Her participation underscores the Egyptian understanding of harmony. Order is maintained not only through visible, heroic action, but also through careful, watchful support. Nephthys is also the mother of Anubis, the god of mummification and the afterlife. According to mythology, Anubis was conceived in union with Osiris, either through a magical encounter or through divine intervention, and Nephthys nurtured him as he grew into his vital role. Anubis's position as the guide of the dead reflects Nephthys's influence in the realms of death, protection, and spiritual transition. Her motherly and protective qualities extend to those undergoing the passage to the afterlife, emphasizing her importance in funerary practices. Her association with death, night, and the unseen is crucial to Egyptian cosmology. Nephthys embodies the liminal spaces between life and death, light and dark, order and chaos. Where Isis actively restores life and nurtures growth, Nephthys oversees the necessary retreat into rest, mourning, and reflection. She represents the hidden forces that support life's continuity by honoring endings and transitions. Egyptians recognized that for life to persist, death and darkness had to be respected and safeguarded, and Nephthys personified this truth. Nephthys's imagery in funerary art is particularly notable. She is often shown spreading her protective wings over the deceased, providing shelter and guidance as souls navigate the perilous journey through the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. Her wings symbolize both protection and transition, enveloping the departed with divine care. In this role, she complements Isis, who restores life, and Osiris, who judges the dead. Together they create a framework for resurrection and safe passage, reinforcing the concept of cosmic balance through cooperation and familial bonds. In addition to her funerary role, Nephthys is associated with rituals of mourning and lamentation. She is called upon to express grief, honor the dead, and maintain sacred respect for those who have passed. This aspect of her identity highlights the Egyptians' profound understanding of emotional expression as a necessary part of life and death. Mourning is not passive sorrow. It is an active, sacred act that restores equilibrium, acknowledges loss, and ensures that transitions are treated with care. Nephthys embodies this principle, demonstrating that even the most understated forces have critical roles in maintaining the universe's order. Despite her quieter presence, Nephthys's powers are formidable. She is a goddess of protective magic, capable of defending the living and the dead from malevolent forces. Her vigilance ensures that dangerous entities, whether supernatural or human, do not disrupt the balance of life and death. In some texts, she is invoked to guard tombs, guide rituals, and protect sacred spaces. This protective function, combined with her association with night and darkness, positions her as a guardian of thresholds, liminal spaces where danger and transformation converge. Nephthys's duality mirrors the complexities of the universe she inhabits. She embodies both the comfort and the inevitability of darkness, the quiet strength that upholds life by attending to its shadows. While other gods wield overt power or influence visible domains like the sky, earth, or fertility, Nephthys's authority lies in her subtle, continuous presence. She is a reminder that the unseen, the shadowed, and the mysterious are integral to the universe's stability. Her relationship with Isis also reflects a profound balance between action and support, visibility and subtlety. Where Isis acts decisively to restore Osiris and protect Horus, Nephthys operates in the margins, ensuring that these acts are sustained and that unseen threats are managed. This dynamic emphasizes that success and stability rely on cooperation between visible heroism and vigilant support, a principle that resonates both in divine narratives and in human society. Nephthys's influence extended beyond myth into the daily lives of Egyptians. Priests and common people alike called upon her in rituals related to death, protection, and transitions. Her name appears in spells, funerary texts, and magical incantations, emphasizing her importance across all levels of Egyptian culture. Even when her role was less conspicuous than that of Osiris, Isis, or Horus, her impact was pervasive and enduring. In summary, Nephthys is a goddess whose significance lies not in overt power but in subtle, essential guardianship. She embodies protection, mourning, night, and the necessary processes of transition and transformation. By supporting her family, guiding the dead, and maintaining cosmic balance in quiet but crucial ways, she demonstrates the Egyptian understanding that every force, no matter how understated, contributes to the stability and harmony of the universe. Nephthys teaches that vigilance, loyalty, and care in the unseen realms are as vital as the heroic acts celebrated in myths. Thoth is one of the most fascinating and multidimensional deities in the Egyptian pantheon. He is the god of wisdom, writing, knowledge, mathematics, science, magic, and the measurement of time. Unlike gods who preside over tangible natural forces like the sun, the Nile, or the desert, Thoth governs abstract and intellectual domains, making him a bridge between the material and the spiritual, the seen and the unseen. To the Egyptians he was indispensable, not just as a deity of intellect, but as a cosmic mediator who ensures that the universe functions according to divine principles. Thoth's origins place him among the early forces that helped stabilize the cosmos after creation, while Atum, Shu, and Tefnut established the initial framework of air, moisture, earth, and sky. Thoth became the guardian of order, the keeper of knowledge, and the scribe of the gods. He was often depicted as an ibis-headed man, his long, curved beak symbolizing precision, elegance, and the careful observation of the universe. In some depictions he appears as a baboon, an animal revered in Egypt for its intelligence and vigilance, especially in observing celestial events at dawn. One of Thoth's most important roles was as the divine scribe and chronicler of events. He recorded the outcomes of divine judgments, maintained the balance of the cosmos, and preserved the sacred knowledge necessary for creation and governance. For example, during the famous weighing of the heart ceremony in the afterlife, Thoth was the scribe who meticulously recorded the judgment conducted by Osiris. He documented the alignment of a deceased person's heart with the feather of Ma'at, the principle of truth and cosmic balance, ensuring that fairness and order prevailed. In this sense, Thoth embodies the idea that knowledge and precision are fundamental to justice and the proper functioning of the universe. Thoth is also credited with creating writing, often called hieroglyphics in its sacred form. The Egyptians believed that he invented not just the written word, but the very concept of language as a tool for communication, magic, and preservation of knowledge. Writing under Thoth's patronage was not merely a practical tool, but a sacred act that connected humans to the divine. Scribes were considered under his special protection, and their work, recording laws, rituals, and histories, was viewed as a continuation of Thoth's divine function. Through writing, knowledge could be passed across generations, ensuring continuity and stability. Mathematics and measurement were also within Thoth's domain. He was believed to have established systems of timekeeping, calendars, and astronomical observation. His connection to the moon, which he is sometimes said to govern, links him to cycles, rhythm, and the precise measurement of celestial phenomena. Time under Thoth's guidance becomes a structured and observable principle rather than a chaotic or subjective experience. By governing time and measurement, Thoth ensures that the universe operates according to order, rhythm, and predictability, reinforcing Ma'at, the cosmic balance that the Egyptians valued above all. Magic, or Heka, is another crucial aspect of Thoth's power. He is not a warrior or a destructive force, but a deity whose magic is intellectual, precise, and transformative. With his words, formulas, and rituals, Thoth can influence both gods and humans, affecting outcomes and restoring balance. His magic emphasizes the Egyptians' belief that knowledge and skill are forms of divine power. Unlike brute force, intelligence, measurement, and ritual provide lasting stability. Thoth's example demonstrates that wisdom, foresight, and careful action are as potent as any weapon in maintaining harmony. Thoth's role extends into creation myths as well. Some texts describe him as the mediator who helped resolve conflicts among the gods, such as the disputes between Horus and Seth over the throne of Egypt. In these stories, Thoth does not take sides but ensures fairness, offering counsel, recording agreements, and applying divine principles to uphold justice. By doing so, he reinforces the idea that wisdom is essential to the maintenance of cosmic and social order. Thoth is also intimately linked with the lunar cycles, often depicted as measuring the moon or governing its phases. The moon represents rhythm, renewal, and cyclical change, all of which are essential for agricultural, religious, and social life in ancient Egypt. By controlling and observing these cycles, Thoth provides a framework for the timing of rituals, planting seasons, and ceremonial observances. His mastery over lunar time symbolizes his broader role in establishing predictability within a universe that could otherwise be chaotic. In addition to his intellectual and cosmic functions, Thoth has a moral dimension. He is a divine advisor, counselor, and guardian of fairness. His presence ensures that knowledge is used responsibly and that power is exercised according to principle. Whether recording judgments, advising gods, or aiding humans, Thoth embodies the ideal of applied wisdom, intelligence in service to balance, justice, and cosmic stability. Thoth's influence also extended into the arts, sciences, and education. Egyptians attributed advances in astronomy, medicine, mathematics, and literature to his guidance. He became the patron of scribes, scholars, and magicians, inspiring the careful study of natural laws, the preservation of culture, and the ethical use of knowledge. His image, whether carved into temple walls or painted on papyrus, reminded both gods and humans that intellect and morality are intertwined, and that knowledge must serve the greater good. Interestingly, Thoth's wisdom also encompassed the mysteries of life and death. He was often consulted in matters of resurrection, healing, and guidance through the afterlife. His knowledge of magic and sacred rites made him essential for ensuring that souls could navigate the duat safely. In funerary texts, Thoth often appears instructing or recording the outcomes of complex rituals, highlighting his role as the ultimate arbiter of truth, knowledge, and cosmic law. Thoth's dual depictions, as an ibis and as a baboon, underscore his versatility. The ibis represents precision, intellectual observation, and divine communication, while the baboon reflects vigilance, social intelligence, and spiritual guidance. Together, these images convey a deity whose power is subtle but profound, whose influence permeates both the natural and intellectual worlds. In essence, Thoth is the god who teaches that knowledge is sacred, that precision and measurement maintain order, and that wisdom is the cornerstone of cosmic and human stability. He embodies the principles of learning, observation, fairness, and applied intelligence. Through Thoth, the Egyptians conveyed a worldview in which intellect, morality, and divine insight are inseparable, showing that the universe is not sustained solely by physical forces but by the careful guidance of wisdom. Anubis, the enigmatic jackal-headed god, occupies a central place in the Egyptian pantheon as the deity of mummification, funerary rites, and the protection of the dead. Unlike some gods whose domains encompass natural or social phenomena, Anubis governs the liminal space between life and death, ensuring that souls transition safely from the mortal world to the afterlife. His presence is both protective and authoritative, embodying the careful balance of ritual, morality, and cosmic order necessary for eternal life. Anubis is traditionally depicted as a man with the head of a black jackal or dog, animals closely associated with cemeteries and the desert outskirts of settlements. The black coloration symbolizes both the fertility of the Nile silt and the darkness of death, representing renewal and rebirth alongside mortality. This dual symbolism underlines Anubis's role as a guardian of transitions. He presides over death not as an end, but as a passage to a different form of existence. Born of Nephthys, and sometimes considered to have a mystical connection with Osiris, Anubis embodies the protective, restorative aspects of death. Nephthys' association with mourning and darkness extends into Anubis's function, highlighting the importance of careful guardianship and respect for sacred spaces. From his earliest myths, Anubis is depicted as a devoted and vigilant protector, ensuring that the deceased are safely prepared for the trials of the afterlife. One of Anubis's most important roles is overseeing the mummification process. Egyptians believed that preserving the body was essential for the survival of the soul in the afterlife. Anubis's divine guidance in embalming ensured that corpses were treated with reverence, rituals were performed correctly, and spiritual protection was maintained throughout the process. Priests often invoked Anubis during mummification ceremonies, calling upon his presence to guard against spiritual corruption and physical decay. In this way, he acts as both a practical and symbolic guardian, merging religious ritual with cosmic principle. Anubis is also central to the journey of the soul after death, particularly during the weighing of the heart ceremony. In this ritual, the deceased's heart is measured against the feather of Ma'at, the principle of truth and balance. Anubis oversees this process, guiding the soul and ensuring that the scales are accurate. Should the heart weigh more than the feather, indicating imbalance, the soul is devoured by Amit, the devourer of the dead. Through this role, Anubis is depicted not merely as a passive observer, but as an active enforcer of justice, ensuring that moral and ethical conduct are honored even beyond life. His protective qualities also extend to guarding tombs and sacred spaces. Egyptians believed that Anubis patrolled cemeteries and necropolises, defending them from grave robbers, malevolent spirits, and desecration. Statues and amulets of Anubis were placed near burial sites to invoke his presence and protection. This dual focus on physical and spiritual guardianship emphasizes his importance in maintaining both the sanctity of human life and the cosmic order that governs death and rebirth. Anubis's mythology also reflects themes of loyalty, devotion, and filial duty. His connection with Osiris, facilitated through Nephthys, aligns him with the restoration of cosmic order after Seth's disruption. By assisting in Osiris's embalming and resurrection, Anubis reinforces the values of familial loyalty, ritual precision, and adherence to divine law. These narratives show that even within the domain of death, ethical and moral structures are central, ensuring that life and afterlife remain intertwined and orderly. Symbolically, Anubis embodies the interface between mortality and eternity. His jackal form, often seen roaming near graves, reminds humans of the inevitability of death, while also offering reassurance that this transition is guided and protected. Death under Anubis's care is not chaotic or fearsome. It is structured, ritualized, and meaningful. His presence transforms a potentially terrifying event into a sacred process, providing both spiritual and emotional comfort to the living and the dead. Anubis's influence also extends into Egyptian art and culture. In tomb paintings and funerary texts, he is frequently depicted attending to the deceased, weighing hearts, or guiding souls through the underworld. These images are not mere decoration but serve as educational and spiritual tools, teaching the living how to prepare for death, live ethically, and honor the gods. His iconography reminds humanity that the afterlife is a continuation of the principles established in life, emphasizing the moral responsibility of the individual. The duality of Anubis's symbolism, death and renewal, darkness and protection, reflects the Egyptians' broader worldview. Life and death are not separate realms but interconnected stages of existence. Anubis ensures that the transition between these stages preserves order, respects divine law, and upholds cosmic balance. His guardianship reinforces the principle that even in moments of vulnerability, the universe is overseen by vigilant and benevolent forces. Anubis's role in magic and ritual further underscores his importance. He is often invoked in spells and incantations to protect the living, guide souls, or maintain spiritual equilibrium. Magicians and priests called upon him to mediate between worlds, heal the spiritually wounded, and ensure that the sacred laws of life and death were upheld. His presence in magical practice demonstrates the Egyptians' understanding that divinity encompasses both visible authority and subtle, unseen guidance. Through millennia of worship, Anubis remained a powerful and accessible deity. People of all social strata revered him, from pharaohs commissioning grand tombs to farmers seeking safe passage for deceased loved ones. His universality stemmed from his essential role. Death affects all, and guidance in this domain is crucial for everyone. By providing protection, justice, and spiritual oversight, Anubis became one of the most enduring symbols of divine care and cosmic order. In essence, Anubis is a guardian of transitions, a mediator between life and death, and a moral and spiritual guide. His jackal form, his role in mummification, and his oversight of the afterlife ceremonies position him as a critical figure in maintaining both physical and cosmic balance. Anubis teaches that death, far from being chaotic or frightening, is a sacred passage that requires vigilance, precision, and ethical conduct. Through his myth, the Egyptians demonstrated that continuity, protection, and respect for divine law are essential in all stages of existence. Bastet, one of the most beloved and recognizable goddesses in the Egyptian pantheon, is a deity whose influence spans protection, fertility, home, music, dance, and even warfare. Often depicted as a lioness or as a woman with a cat's head, Bastet embodies a dual nature, nurturing and protective on one hand, fierce and assertive on the other. Her complexity reflects the Egyptians' appreciation for balance, showing that this same force can nurture life while defending it with formidable power. Bastet's origins are deeply entwined with the mythological evolution of Egyptian deities. Originally, she was depicted as a lioness, fierce and untamed, closely associated with the sun god Ra and protective of the pharaoh. As Egyptian society evolved, her image softened into that of a domestic cat, reflecting her role as a guardian of homes and families. This transition illustrates the Egyptians' tendency to adapt deities' characteristics to cultural needs, emphasizing the interplay between fierce natural power and controlled, nurturing influence. As a goddess of protection, Bastet is multifaceted. She is a guardian against evil spirits, disease, and misfortune, extending her protection to both individuals and communities. Cats, revered in Egypt for their hunting skills and ability to protect grain stores from rodents, symbolically represented her watchfulness and defense. Temples and households honored Bastet with statues and amulets, calling upon her protective influence in both mundane and spiritual matters. Her guardianship reflects the Egyptians' understanding that safety and order are achieved not only through divine power but through constant vigilance and care. Bastet is also closely associated with fertility and motherhood. Her nurturing qualities extend to children, families, and domestic life. Festivals dedicated to her often celebrated these aspects, incorporating music, dance, and communal celebration. She represents the cyclical and life-giving forces that sustain households and communities, ensuring not only physical protection but also emotional and social harmony. Her presence in the home symbolized the balance between strength and care, demonstrating that power is most effective when tempered by responsibility and love. In addition to her domestic and protective roles, Bastet is a goddess of pleasure, music, and dance. She embodies joy, celebration, and cultural vitality. Festivals in her honor were often marked by singing, drumming, and dancing, emphasizing her connection to the rhythms of life. Through music and movement, Bastet fosters social cohesion, spiritual upliftment, and emotional resilience. This celebratory dimension shows that the Egyptians valued deities who contributed to both the practical and aesthetic aspects of life, recognizing that happiness, art, and culture are essential components of a harmonious world. Bastet's connection to warfare and fierce defense is a reminder of her duality. While she nurtures and protects, she can also act decisively against threats. Her lioness form, retained in certain iconography, represents this martial aspect. In times of conflict, she could be invoked to defend the pharaoh, the nation, or individuals from harm. This combination of nurturing and combative traits exemplifies the Egyptian belief that true strength lies in the ability to protect and assert order while maintaining care and balance. Her worship extended beyond personal and domestic spheres into public life. Bastet's primary cult center was in the city of Bubastis, located in the Nile Delta. The city's temple complex was one of the most important and lavish in Egypt, attracting pilgrims from across the kingdom. Large-scale festivals celebrated Bastet with elaborate processions, music, dancing, and offerings, emphasizing her communal significance. These events reinforce social bonds and religious devotion, highlighting Bastet's role as a goddess who integrates spiritual, social, and cultural dimensions of life. Bastet is also symbolically connected to the sun and moon through her protective and life-giving attributes. In her lioness form, she was linked to solar energy, embodying strength, vigilance, and the fiery power needed to ward off chaos. In her domestic cat form, she represented the softer, reflective lunar qualities of intuition, watchfulness, and domestic care. This dual connection to celestial cycles emphasizes her comprehensive role in maintaining balance, both cosmically and in daily life. Interestingly, Bastet's feline representation carried profound cultural significance. Cats were revered in ancient Egypt for their grace, hunting ability, and mysterious behavior. Killing a cat, even accidentally, was considered a grave offense, sometimes punishable by death. Bastet's embodiment in the form of a cat reinforced the sacredness of domestic and natural life, teaching humans respect for the creatures that share their world. The cat's elegance, independence, and alertness mirrored the qualities Egyptians admired in Bastet herself. Bastet's mythology also intersects with other deities, particularly Ra, as she served as his protector against chaos. In some traditions, she is part of the retinue of the sun god, defending him against serpents or other forces that threaten cosmic order. This martial dimension aligns with her lioness aspect and reinforces her role as both defender and nurturer, capable of fierce action when necessary. She embodies the principle that protection and vigilance are continuous responsibilities requiring both strength and wisdom. Her dual nature, domestic cat and lioness, nurturer and warrior, demonstrates the Egyptians' nuanced understanding of divinity. Bastet teaches that life is a balance between care and defense, celebration and vigilance, joy and responsibility. She is a goddess whose influence permeates both ordinary and extraordinary experiences, reminding worshippers that divine power is present in everyday life, as well as in cosmic affairs. Bastet's enduring appeal can also be seen in her influence beyond ancient Egypt. Her image and cult spread into the Mediterranean world, inspiring admiration for feline deities, protective goddesses, and symbols of joy and fertility. Even today, Bastet remains an iconic figure in popular culture, representing mystery, grace, protection, and feminine power. In summary, Bastet is a goddess of protection, fertility, joy, music, and defense. She embodies duality, harmonizing fierce power with nurturing care, vigilance with celebration, and domestic responsibility with cosmic protection. Her mythology and worship highlight the Egyptians' understanding that balance, joy, and protection are intertwined, and that true divinity encompasses both strength and grace. Bastet's presence ensures that life is safeguarded, celebrated, and guided, making her one of the most beloved and enduring figures in Egyptian religion. Maat, perhaps one of the most philosophically profound deities in ancient Egyptian mythology, embodies truth, justice, balance, and cosmic order. Unlike gods associated with tangible forces like the Nile, the sun, or agriculture, Maat represents an abstract but essential principle that governs both the universe and human society. She is not merely a goddess in the traditional sense. She is the living embodiment of the moral, ethical, and cosmic laws that sustain life and ensure harmony between the divine, human, and natural worlds. Ma'at's origins trace back to the earliest cosmogonies of Heliopolis, where she emerges as a primordial concept brought into being alongside Atum, Shu, and Tefnut. She is sometimes described as a daughter or companion of Ra, the sun god, emphasizing her role as a guiding force in the governance of the cosmos. Her presence ensures that the creation established by the first gods remains stable and balanced. Without Ma'at, the universe would descend into chaos, a principle the Egyptians deeply understood, given the precarious environment they inhabited and the unpredictability of natural events. Depictions of Ma'at frequently show her as a woman with an ostrich feather atop her head, the symbol most closely associated with her. This feather is not merely decorative, it is central to her mythology and symbolic function. In funerary context, the feather is used to weigh the hearts of the deceased against it in the Hall of Two Truths. If a person's heart is lighter or balanced against the feather, it indicates that they have lived in accordance with Ma'at, achieving moral and spiritual harmony. If the heart outweighs the feather, it signifies wrongdoing, leading to the soul's destruction by Amit. In this way, Ma'at embodies the ultimate measure of ethical conduct, extending divine principles directly into human behavior and judgment. Ma'at's influence extends beyond the afterlife. She is fundamental to governance and social order in the mortal realm. Pharaohs were seen as the living enforcers of Ma'at, responsible for maintaining justice, fairness, and balance in their domains. Laws, decrees, and social norms were not arbitrary. They were understood as reflections of the cosmic order that Ma'at personifies. By aligning themselves with her principles, rulers validated their authority and ensured that society operated harmoniously. Temples, monuments, and inscriptions often emphasize this connection, portraying the pharaoh as the guarantor of Ma'at's eternal stability. The concept of Ma'at is also intricately linked to natural balance. Egyptians observed that the success of crops, the regularity of the Nile's flooding, and the stability of seasons depended on equilibrium between opposing forces. Just as Ma'at maintains cosmic harmony, humans were expected to honor this balance through ethical action, ritual observance, and respect for the gods. In essence, Ma'at provided a framework for understanding the interconnectedness of morality, nature, and divine authority. She represents a principle that governs not only human society but the entire cosmos. Ma'at's role in the Hall of Two Truths highlights her judicial and moral authority. During the weighing of the heart ceremony, Anubis presents the deceased before Osiris, the ruler of the underworld, and Ma'at's feather serves as the standard against which moral integrity is measured. Thoth records the outcome, ensuring divine oversight of the process. This ritual illustrates that morality in Egyptian thought was not subjective but anchored in universal principles. Ma'at ensures that justice is impartial, consistent, and eternal, bridging the divine, human, and cosmic realms. Ma'at's influence permeates Egyptian religion, philosophy, and daily life. Her principles guided rituals, ethical decisions, and social conduct. Priests invoked her in ceremonies to maintain order within temples and communities. Ordinary Egyptians sought her guidance in personal behavior, striving to live lives aligned with truth, justice, and balance. Her concept emphasizes that ethics are not merely cultural constructs but integral to the maintenance of life itself. Ma'at also embodies intellectual and spiritual wisdom. Her presence encourages reflection, ethical discernment, and understanding of the consequences of actions. By teaching humans to live in accordance with universal principles, she fosters moral development and spiritual growth. In this sense, Ma'at is not a distant, punitive deity, but a guiding force whose influence nurtures awareness, responsibility, and self-discipline. Interestingly, Ma'at is often depicted as a companion or co-regent with Ra, or the pharaoh, symbolizing that the enforcement of cosmic order requires partnership between divine authority and human agency. The pharaoh, embodying Horus on earth, acts in accordance with Ma'at, while Ma'at provides the standard of truth and balance that guides rulership. This relationship reflects a sophisticated understanding of governance. Power is legitimate only when exercised ethically and in alignment with universal principles. Ma'at's teachings extend metaphorically to all aspects of life. Her influence can be seen in the careful planning of agricultural activities, the equitable resolution of disputes, the proper execution of religious rituals, and the ethical conduct of individuals. In every act that respects balance, fairness, and harmony, Ma'at's principle is realized. She is not merely a goddess to be worshipped, but a standard to be integrated into human life, reflecting the Egyptians' holistic approach to morality and cosmology. Beyond ancient Egypt, Ma'at's philosophical significance resonates across cultures and eras. She represents the enduring human aspiration for truth, justice, and harmony, a universal principle that transcends time and geography. In her emphasis on balance, ethical conduct, and cosmic order, Ma'at embodies ideals that continue to inspire moral reflection and social responsibility. In summary, Ma'at is the goddess and principle of truth, justice, balance, and cosmic order. She governs morality, governance, natural equilibrium, and the afterlife, serving as a standard against which ethical behavior is measured. Through her influence, the Egyptians cultivated a worldview in which divine law, human responsibility, and natural harmony are interconnected. Ma'at teaches that order is sustained through vigilance, integrity, and alignment with universal principles, making her one of the most profound and enduring figures in Egyptian mythology. Sobek, the crocodile-headed god of ancient Egypt, represents one of the most intriguing dualities in the pantheon. He embodies both ferocity and fertility, danger and protection. As a deity associated with the Nile, military power, and the life-giving properties of water, Sobek's presence underscores the Egyptians' understanding of the natural world as simultaneously nurturing and threatening. His worship illustrates the civilization's recognition that survival, prosperity, and cosmic order depend on respect for forces that are powerful, unpredictable, and essential. Sobek's origins trace to early Egyptian mythology, with strong connections to the Nile and its vital role in sustaining life. The Nile's floods brought fertility to the soil, enabling agriculture, yet the river itself could be deadly, with crocodiles, unpredictable currents, and seasonal overflow posing constant risks. Sobek personifies this duality. His crocodile form represents raw strength and primal danger, while his divine role ensures the protection and fertility necessary for human survival. By venerating Sobek, Egyptians acknowledge both the life-giving and destructive potential of the natural world. Depictions of Sobek typically show him as a man with the head of a crocodile, sometimes holding the ankh, symbol of life, or a scepter, representing authority. In some representations, he is shown fully as a crocodile, emphasizing his connection to the river and the animal's dominance over its environment. This imagery served multiple purposes. It inspired awe, conveyed respect for his power, and symbolized the balance between fear and reverence required in interactions with nature. Sobek's protective role is central to his mythology. He was believed to guard the pharaoh, ensure the fertility of the Nile, and defend Egypt from external threats. Military associations arise from this protective aspect. Sobek's strength and ferocity made him a symbol of martial power and strategy. Pharaohs often invoked him for courage, aggression in battle, and dominance over enemies. Temples dedicated to Sobek, such as the one at Crocodilopolis, modern-day Fayum, emphasized his dual nature, the god who could destroy yet also safeguard, the fierce force who simultaneously nurtures life. Sobek is also closely tied to fertility and agricultural prosperity. The annual Nile flood was crucial for crop cultivation, and Sobek's control over the river's waters symbolized the provision of food, resources, and sustenance. Festivals celebrating Sobek often coincided with flood cycles, acknowledging his influence on the cycles of growth and renewal. In this way, he embodies the principle that life depends on harnessing and respecting powerful natural forces rather than attempting to dominate or ignore them. The myths surrounding Sobek reveal his integration into broader divine narratives. He was sometimes considered the son of Neith, the primordial goddess of creation and war, linking him to both creation and conflict. In some traditions, he assists Ra, the sun god, defending him against Apep, the serpent of chaos. This aligns Sobek with the maintenance of cosmic order, showing that his strength and aggression are not destructive for their own sake, but serve a greater purpose: protection of life, divine authority, and stability in the universe. Sobek's duality is also moral and symbolic. He represents the necessity of balancing raw power with responsibility. His crocodile form reminds humans that unchecked strength can be destructive, while his divine role demonstrates that power can also be protective and life-sustaining when guided by wisdom and purpose. In Egyptian thought, Sobek teaches that survival, prosperity, and order require respect for natural and divine forces, understanding their dual potential, and channeling them appropriately. Sobek's cult had both local and national significance. Crocodilopolis, one of his main centers of worship, was famous for housing sacred crocodiles, often adorned with jewelry and cared for by priests. These living symbols of the god reinforced the tangible presence of divine power and the need for ritualized respect. Pilgrims and worshippers would come to honor Sobek, seeking protection, fertility, and guidance. His influence extended into everyday life, demonstrating the integration of divine oversight in agriculture, safety, and social stability. Sobek's martial associations also link him to the pharaoh's authority. By invoking Sobek, rulers align themselves with a deity who embodies strength, courage, and strategic acumen. His protective qualities were thought to extend to the king, ensuring dominance over adversaries and security for the kingdom. This way, Sobek's mythology illustrates the Egyptian principle that power must be exercised responsibly, with awareness of both its protective and potentially destructive consequences. In addition to warfare and agriculture, Sobek's association with water extends to healing and purification. Rivers and lakes were sources of both life and disease, and Sobek's influence was invoked in rituals designed to maintain health, prevent floods, and cleanse sacred spaces. He embodies the life-giving properties of water, while also commanding respect for its dangers, demonstrating a profound understanding of nature's dual role in human survival. Sobek's enduring appeal also comes from his integration of animal and divine characteristics. The crocodile, a predator feared by humans, becomes a symbol of divine protection when sanctified through Sobek's worship. This transformation illustrates the Egyptian belief that natural forces, when respected and honored, can be harnessed for life and order rather than destruction. Sobek's dual nature encourages a worldview where humans recognize their dependence on and responsibility toward powerful forces beyond their control. Sobek's mythology and cult also emphasize the interconnectedness of all Egyptian gods. He interacts with Ra, Neith, Osiris, and other deities, demonstrating that even seemingly fearsome or independent forces are part of a larger cosmic framework. Sobek's role highlights the balance between aggression and protection, danger and fertility, chaos and order, showing that each deity contributes to maintaining harmony in complementary ways. In summary, Sobek is the crocodile-headed god of the Nile, fertility, protection, and martial strength. His dual nature embodies the Egyptians' understanding of the natural world as simultaneously nurturing and threatening. Sobek teaches that survival, prosperity, and cosmic balance require respect, vigilance, and the responsible application of power. Through his mythology, Egyptians saw the integration of danger and protection, strength and nurture, illustrating that the forces that challenge life can also sustain it when approached with reverence and wisdom. Isis, one of the most famous and universally revered goddesses of ancient Egypt, embodies the ideals of motherhood, magic, protection, and kingship. Her significance transcends mythology, extending deeply into religion, daily life, and the broader moral framework of Egyptian society. Unlike many gods whose influence is confined to a single domain, Isis's reach is broad and transformative, encompassing family, magic, the afterlife, and the legitimization of power. Isis is the daughter of Geb, the earth god, and Nut, the sky goddess, making her sibling to Osiris, Seth, and Nephthys. This lineage places her at the heart of the Ennead of Heliopolis, the 9 deities central to creation myths and the maintenance of cosmic order. From birth, Isis's story is intertwined with the central themes of conflict, restoration, and moral balance. Her life is characterized by acts of intelligence, courage, and magical skill that shape both divine and mortal worlds. Isis is most famously associated with the resurrection of her husband and brother, Osiris, after he was murdered by Seth. Her role in this narrative highlights her abilities as a magician and protector. Using her knowledge of divine magic, she gathers the scattered pieces of Osiris's body, restores him to life, and conceives Horus. This act is not merely personal but cosmic. By resurrecting Osiris, Isis restores order, continuity, and legitimacy to the divine line. Her mastery of magic and ritual demonstrates that intellect, perseverance, and spiritual skill are as powerful as brute strength in maintaining harmony. Isis is frequently depicted as a woman with a throne-shaped crown or a pair of cow horns encircling a sun disk. These symbols reflect her dual role as both a maternal figure and a goddess connected to divine authority. The throne symbolizes her integral association with kingship, while the sun disk and horns emphasize her protective and nurturing qualities. In some depictions, she is shown nursing Horus, reinforcing her status as a universal mother figure whose care sustains both life and legitimacy. Her maternal role is central to her identity. Isis nurtures Horus not only as a child, but as the rightful heir to the throne of Egypt. Her protection extends beyond physical care to guidance, strategy, and teaching. In Egyptian mythology, Horus must survive and overcome the threat of Seth to restore order. Isis's maternal wisdom and magical abilities ensure that he matures into a capable and just ruler. This relationship reflects broader societal values. Motherhood is both nurturing and instructive, supporting the next generation and ensuring the continuity of order and justice. Isis's magical abilities are legendary. She is often invoked for protection, healing, and guidance. Her magic is not destructive but restorative, emphasizing the Egyptian belief that power is most effective when it supports life and harmony. In daily life, Egyptians would call upon Isis for help with health, family matters, and spiritual protection. Her spells and amulets were considered powerful tools for ensuring safety, success, and well-being. Showing that divine intervention could be both personal and practical, Isis's influence extends into the afterlife as well. She is a protector of the dead, guiding souls through the challenges of the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. Her magic and vigilance ensure that the deceased navigate these trials safely, often in collaboration with Anubis and Nephthys. Through this role, Isis bridges the mortal and divine realms, emphasizing the continuity of life, moral accountability, and the protective guidance necessary for successful passage beyond death. As a goddess of kingship, Isis is essential to the legitimacy of pharaohs. In myths, she assists Horus in reclaiming the throne from Seth, ensuring that divine justice is upheld. Pharaohs were often depicted in temples receiving guidance or blessing from Isis, emphasizing that rulership is both a divine responsibility and a continuation of cosmic order. Her association with the throne underscores her role in ensuring political stability, moral governance, and the maintenance of Ma'at, the principle of truth and balance. Isis's protective qualities are not limited to her family or rulers. She is invoked as a guardian of households, children, and communities. Festivals, prayers, and rituals celebrated her as a benevolent figure who watches over everyday life. Her presence reassured people that divine care could be accessed through devotion, ritual, and ethical behavior, reinforcing the idea that humans and gods interact in meaningful, reciprocal ways. Her mythology also emphasizes resilience, intelligence, and adaptability. In the narrative surrounding Seth's attack on Osiris, Isis demonstrates ingenuity, strategy, and courage. She navigates danger, deceives enemies, and uses her knowledge to protect what is just and rightful. These traits make her a model of wisdom and moral strength, showing that divine power is exercised most effectively through intellect, planning, and ethical action rather than sheer force alone. Isis's worship extended far beyond Egypt, influencing cultures throughout the Mediterranean and Near East. Her universal themes of motherhood, protection, magic, and justice resonated across borders, and her cult became one of the most widespread in the ancient world. Temples, rituals, and festivals dedicated to Isis illustrate her enduring appeal and the practical as well as spiritual significance she held for diverse communities. Her magical and protective powers also intersect with health, fertility, and daily well-being. Egyptians often invoked Isis in spells to heal the sick, protect children, or ensure a safe household. Amulets bearing her image were considered potent, symbolizing both physical protection and moral guidance. In this sense, Isis bridges the spiritual and practical dimensions of life, showing that divine power is most meaningful when it enhances and safeguards existence. In summary, Isis is the goddess of motherhood, magic, protection, and kingship. She embodies intelligence, perseverance, and ethical power, guiding both divine and human realms. Through her actions, she restores order after chaos, nurtures future generations, and ensures the continuity of moral and cosmic principles. Isis teaches that strength, wisdom, and care are inseparable, showing that protection, magic, and maternal guidance are central to maintaining life, order, and justice. Her enduring influence, both in ancient Egypt and across later cultures, reflects her universal significance as a goddess whose presence safeguards, nurtures, and guides all aspects of existence. Horus, one of the most iconic deities in Egyptian mythology, is the god of the sky, kingship, and protection. Often depicted as a falcon or as a man with a falcon head, Horus represents the enduring principle of divine rulership, the defense of order, and the link between the heavens and the mortal world. His prominence in Egyptian culture reflects the importance placed on kingship, legitimacy, and the balance between chaos and order. Horus is the son of Osiris and Isis, conceived after Osiris's resurrection. From birth, he embodies the continuity of life and the rightful succession of power. The struggle between Horus and Seth, his uncle, over the throne of Egypt is one of the central myths of Egyptian religion. This conflict is not simply a family dispute. It represents the broader cosmic struggle between order and chaos, justice and ambition. Horus's victory in this struggle establishes him as the embodiment of rightful rule and protector of Maat, the principle of balance and truth. Depictions of Horus frequently emphasize his falcon attributes. The falcon, a bird of prey, symbolizes vision, speed, and precision, reflecting Horus's vigilance as a defender of divine and earthly order. The Eye of Horus, a powerful symbol derived from his mythic struggles, represents protection, restoration, and healing. It was widely used as an amulet to safeguard both the living and the deceased, highlighting Horus's enduring role as a guardian across life and afterlife. Horus's mythology emphasizes his dual nature. He is both a warrior and a nurturer. While he engages in battles to restore order, he also safeguards his followers, guides kings, and maintains cosmic balance. In this sense, Horus teaches that leadership requires both strength and wisdom, courage and responsibility. Pharaohs were seen as earthly embodiments of Horus, linking divine principles directly to governance, law, and military power. His connection to the sky is both literal and symbolic. As a sky deity, Horus oversees the heavens, the movement of celestial bodies, and the cycles of day and night. This association underscores his role in maintaining order on both cosmic and terrestrial levels. He represents oversight, authority, and vigilance, qualities essential for sustaining life, social order, and justice. Horus's influence extended into religious practice, art, and daily life. Temples dedicated to him served as centers of worship and political symbolism, reinforcing the divine legitimacy of kingship. Festivals, rituals, and prayers invoked his protection, emphasizing his dual role as cosmic overseer and practical guardian of people and the state. Through Horus, Egyptians understood that divine order, vigilance, and ethical rule are inseparable, and that maintaining harmony requires active engagement with both spiritual and worldly responsibilities. Amun later merged with Ra to become Amun-Ra, is one of the most powerful and complex deities in ancient Egypt. Known as the king of the gods, Amun's influence spans creation, hidden power, kingship, and the maintenance of cosmic balance. His worship emphasizes the interplay between the visible and hidden aspects of divinity, highlighting that true power often operates behind the scenes, unseen but essential. Initially a local deity of Thebes, Amun rose to national prominence during the Middle and New Kingdoms. As the political and religious influence of Thebes grew, Amun became associated with creation, supreme authority, and the legitimization of pharaohs. He is often depicted as a man wearing a tall, double-plumed crown, symbolizing his authority, mystery, and connection to both Upper and Lower Egypt. Sometimes he is shown with a ram's head, emphasizing fertility, strength, and protective power. Amun embodies hidden potential and unseen influence. Unlike gods associated with tangible phenomena like the sun, Nile, or storms, Amun's domain is primarily spiritual, abstract, and mysterious. His name literally means the hidden one, reflecting the Egyptian belief that the most profound forces in the universe operate quietly, unseen, yet powerfully. He is a deity whose presence stabilizes the cosmos, influences kingship, and shapes human destiny. Often without direct or visible action, Amun's role as a creator deity is significant. In some myths, he generates the cosmos through thought or speech, highlighting the Egyptian understanding that creation is both intellectual and spiritual. Through Amun, Egyptians explored the idea that divine authority, intelligence, and hidden power underlie the apparent order of the world. He serves as a reminder that not all influence is obvious, and that subtlety and foresight are essential for sustaining life, governance, and cosmic harmony. Amun's association with kingship reinforced his political importance. Pharaohs often identified themselves with Amun, asserting divine authority and legitimacy. This relationship elevated Amun beyond religious devotion, intertwining his worship with governance, law, and national identity. Temples like Karnak in Thebes became central to religious, social, and political life, reflecting Amun's pervasive presence in Egyptian society. His merging with Ra, the sun god, further enhanced his stature. Amun-Ra represented the ultimate authority over both hidden and visible domains, combining mystery, wisdom, and life-giving energy. Festivals and rituals celebrating Amun-Ra emphasized his power to create, sustain, and protect, demonstrating the Egyptians' understanding of divinity as multifaceted, dynamic, and integrally connected to human and cosmic life. Mut, often paired with Amun and Khonsu in the Theban triad, is the ancient Egyptian mother goddess whose influence spans motherhood, protection, and divine authority. Her name literally means mother, and she embodies the maternal principle in both nurturing and protective forms. Mut's presence in Egyptian mythology reinforces the connection between kingship, cosmic order, and the sustaining force of maternal care. Mut is frequently depicted as a woman wearing the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt, or adorned with a vulture headdress, symbolizing protection, royalty, and maternal vigilance. She represents the authority of creation, the sustaining power of life, and the guardianship necessary for both rulers and common people. As a mother figure, she nurtures, protects, and legitimizes, demonstrating the Egyptian understanding that maternal power is central to stability, society, and cosmic order. In mythology, Mut's relationship with Amun is essential to the Theban triad. Together they symbolize creation, divine authority, and protective power. Khonsu, their child, represents time and the moon, completing the triad and linking maternal care, cosmic cycles, and the maintenance of order. Mut's role as mother extends beyond familial dynamics. She ensures the continuation of divine and cosmic principles, safeguarding the stability of both heaven and earth. Mut's protective aspect is particularly prominent. As a mother goddess, she shields rulers, priests, and the populace from chaos, reinforcing the Egyptian notion that divine maternal power preserves order. Her influence is invoked in rituals, amulets, and temple practices designed to guard against spiritual and physical threats. Mut demonstrates that protection is an active, continuous process, requiring both vigilance and nurturing energy. Mut's integration into religious and political life highlights her importance. Temples dedicated to her in Thebes emphasized her role as both divine mother and legitimizer of kingship. Through Mut, Egyptians understood that authority is derived from divine endorsement, that maternal care supports governance, and that cosmic and social stability depend on balanced, nurturing power. Mut's mythology also emphasizes endurance, loyalty, and balance. Her maternal authority ensures that divine and human realms remain connected and harmonious. She illustrates that leadership, protection, and care are interdependent, reinforcing the central Egyptian principle that life, law, and cosmic order require vigilance, wisdom, and nurturing guidance. Khonsu, the lunar god of ancient Egypt, holds a unique position in the pantheon as a deity connected to the moon, time, healing, and protection. His name means traveler, reflecting the nightly journey of the moon across the sky, and symbolizing his role as a guide through cycles of change, life, and spiritual transition. Unlike solar deities who embody visible, life-giving energy, Khonsu represents rhythm, reflection, and the subtle influence of celestial forces on human life and cosmic order. Khonsu is often depicted as a young man with a sidelock of youth, wearing a lunar disk or crescent atop his head, and carrying a Waz scepter, symbolizing authority and power. In some representations, he appears as a child seated on his mother Mut's lap, highlighting his connection to the Theban triad and the nurturing, protective force of maternal guidance. These depictions convey both his youthful vitality and his growing influence in the cycles of nature, time and spiritual guidance. As a lunar deity, Khonsu governs the night sky, measuring time, overseeing calendars, and marking essential agricultural, religious, and social cycles. Egyptians observed the moon's phases carefully, linking them to fertility, planting, and ritual timing. Khonsu's presence ensured that these cycles remained predictable, sustaining life and human activity. By controlling the rhythms of the night, he balanced the influence of solar energy during the day, demonstrating the Egyptians' appreciation for the interplay of visible and invisible forces in maintaining order. Khonsu is also a healer and protector. Temples dedicated to him, particularly at Karnak, served as centers for curing diseases, warding off spiritual threats, and performing rituals to restore health. Priests would invoke Khonsu's power to diagnose ailments, perform exorcisms, and provide magical protection. His connection to both the physical and spiritual aspects of health illustrates the Egyptian understanding that cosmic forces, divine oversight, and human intervention work together to sustain life. In myth, Khonsu is closely linked to his parents, Amun and Mut, forming a triad that reflects creation, stability, and protection. Amun's hidden power, Mut's maternal care, and Khonsu's guidance of time and cycles create a harmonious structure within the pantheon. This triad symbolizes the interconnectedness of life, governance, and cosmic rhythm, emphasizing that every divine force complements the others to preserve balance. Khonsu's protective function extends to the afterlife. He was believed to safeguard travelers through the night, guiding souls on their journey through the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. By overseeing transitions and ensuring safety, Khonsu reinforces the principle that both temporal and spiritual journeys require divine guidance, vigilance, and protection. His influence assures continuity, order, and security across both life and death. He is also associated with fertility and growth. The lunar cycles that Khonsu governs affect agricultural activities, animal reproduction, and human social patterns. His presence ensures that the rhythms of life remain consistent, productive, and harmonious. This demonstrates the Egyptians' belief that divine oversight of natural cycles is crucial for the prosperity and stability of both society and the environment. Khonsu's mythology highlights both his youthful vigor and growing authority. Despite his age as a god, he is often portrayed with youthful energy, representing renewal, potential, and adaptability. This duality reinforces the idea that time, cycles, and growth are dynamic processes that require guidance and careful management, ensuring the ongoing balance of the universe. Through worship, Egyptians sought Khonsu's guidance in matters of health, fertility, safety, and spiritual navigation. His presence in temples, amulets, and rituals underscores the pervasive role he played in both everyday and cosmic life. Khonsu teaches that attention to rhythm, time, and cycles, alongside vigilance and nurturing care, sustains life, supports morality, and maintains cosmic order. Seth, often called Sethos, is the god of chaos, storms, deserts, and conflict, representing the disruptive and unpredictable forces of nature. Unlike many deities who embody order, prosperity, or protection, Seth's domain reflects danger, aggression, and imbalance. Yet this apparent antagonism is vital to Egyptian cosmology. Chaos, when understood and managed, is essential to growth, adaptation, and the maintenance of cosmic equilibrium. Seth is frequently depicted with an enigmatic animal head, sometimes called the Seth animal, with a long curved snout, rectangular ears, and forked tail. This unique form emphasizes his otherworldly, unpredictable nature. He is associated with the desert, storms, and foreign lands, spaces beyond human control, symbolizing both physical and spiritual threats to life and order. Seth embodies the wild, untamed aspects of existence that challenge humans, gods, and kings alike. His most famous myth involves the murder of his brother Osiris. This act of violence, betrayal, and ambition positions Seth as a figure of chaos and moral disruption. However, his role is not purely destructive. The conflict between Seth and Horus, the rightful heir of Osiris, establishes a cosmic balance, illustrating that struggle, opposition, and conflict are necessary for maintaining order. Seth's presence ensures that laws, kingship, and morality are tested, refined, and ultimately strengthened. Seth also serves as a protector in certain contexts. While he embodies chaos, he can be invoked to defend Egypt against external enemies, dangerous animals, and threats from the natural world. In this dual role, Seth demonstrates that even chaotic forces can be harnessed for protection and the preservation of order. Egyptians understood that strength and aggression, when directed wisely, contribute to stability rather than destruction. He is associated with storms, darkness, and the desert, representing natural hazards and human vulnerability. His mythological presence reminds people of the need for vigilance, courage, and adaptability in the face of unpredictable forces. Through Seth, Egyptians explored themes of duality, conflict, and the balance between life's constructive and destructive energies. Seth's influence also intersects with the pharaoh's authority. Pharaohs needed to manage Seth's chaotic energy responsibly, ensuring that their rule upheld Ma'at while navigating internal and external threats. Seth's presence in royal symbolism reflects the acknowledgement that leadership requires control over both order and disorder, integrating opposition into governance and cosmic balance. Neith, one of Egypt's oldest deities, is the goddess of war, weaving, hunting, and creation. Her presence embodies both protective and creative forces, demonstrating the Egyptians' belief that strength, skill, and ingenuity are inseparable from the maintenance of life and cosmic order. Often depicted as a woman wearing the red crown of Lower Egypt and carrying a bow and arrows, Neith combines martial authority with creative intelligence. Neith's association with weaving symbolizes the structuring of life and the universe. Threads of destiny, social order, and cosmic balance are metaphorically woven under her guidance. This creative power complements her role as a warrior and protector, illustrating that creation and defense are interconnected aspects of maintaining order. In myth, Neith is credited with giving birth to or assisting in the creation of the universe, emphasizing her primordial significance. She presides over both life and death, protecting individuals, kings, and sacred spaces from chaos. Her dual role as creator and warrior demonstrates the Egyptians' understanding that strength and creativity must coexist to sustain life, society, and cosmic stability. Neith's martial aspect also aligns her with the pharaoh. She is invoked to grant courage, strategy, and victory, reflecting her integral role in governance and societal protection. Through Neith, Egyptians explored the principle that power, skill, and ingenuity are essential not only for survival, but for upholding justice and order. Her worship included festivals, rituals, and offerings that honored both her creative and martial dimensions. Temples dedicated to Neith, such as those in Sais, highlight her enduring importance in spiritual, cultural, and political life. By integrating protection, creativity, and divine guidance, Neith embodies the harmonious balance between offense and defense, innovation and preservation. Ptah, one of the oldest and most revered deities of ancient Egypt, is the god of creation, craftsmanship, and architecture. Unlike gods tied to natural elements or celestial bodies, Ptah's domain is intellectual and artistic. He brings life into being through thought, speech, and skilled labor. His influence reflects the Egyptians' deep understanding of the connection between creativity, order, and divine authority. Ptah was primarily worshipped in Memphis, the ancient capital of Lower Egypt, where he became the patron of builders, artisans, and craftsmen. He is often depicted as a mummified man, holding a scepter combining the symbols of life, Ankh, stability, Djed, and power, was. This iconography underscores Ptah's central role in sustaining both cosmic and social order through creative thought and deliberate action. According to Egyptian cosmology, Ptah created the universe by conceiving it in his heart and bringing it into existence through speech. This idea elevates intellect and articulation to divine forces, showing that words, planning, and structured thought are as powerful as physical creation. By envisioning reality and giving it form, Ptah embodies the principle that order arises from intentionality, design, and skill. As a patron of artisans and architects, Ptah's influence extended to human society in practical ways. Temples, tombs, statues, and monumental works were all created under his divine guidance, emphasizing the sacredness of craftsmanship. Craftsmen often invoke Ptah to bless their work, ensuring precision, durability, and alignment with cosmic principles. In this sense, creativity and labor are elevated to spiritual practice, merging everyday life with divine purpose. Ptah also has a strong connection to kingship. Pharaohs invoked him as the master architect and creator of the cosmos, reinforcing their role as maintainers of Ma'at. By aligning with Ptah, rulers demonstrated that their authority was grounded not only in divine sanction, but in the responsible application of skill, foresight, and wisdom. Ptah's presence in governance underscores the Egyptian belief that intellect and creativity are essential to both political and cosmic stability. In addition to creation and craftsmanship, Ptah is associated with healing and protection. His scepter and iconography symbolize the stabilization of life, health, and cosmic order. Priests would perform rituals invoking Ptah's power to maintain balance, safeguard communities, and protect sacred sites. These practices emphasize the holistic nature of Egyptian religion, where divine influence sustains life across physical, spiritual, and social dimensions. Ptah's mythology also highlights the integration of thought and action. Unlike gods who act impulsively or violently, Ptah's power manifests through careful planning and deliberate execution. This quality teaches that wisdom, foresight, and skillful execution are essential for creating lasting order. His philosophy blends intellect, morality, and artistry, reflecting a uniquely Egyptian perspective on the interplay between human and divine creativity. In summary, Ptah is the god of creation, craftsmanship, and architecture, embodying the principle that thought, speech, and skill bring order to the universe. He is a patron of artisans, kings, and society at large, demonstrating that intellect and creativity are essential to sustaining life, governance, and cosmic balance. Ptah teaches that deliberate, thoughtful action, guided by wisdom and skill, is the foundation of both human and divine stability. Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of war, destruction, and healing, is one of the most powerful and fearsome deities in the Egyptian pantheon. Her dual nature as both destroyer and healer underscores the Egyptians' understanding that power, when wielded responsibly, can protect, restore, and sustain life. Sekhmet embodies the tension between chaos and order, aggression and care, reflecting the dynamic forces that govern both the natural and social worlds. Sekhmet is often depicted as a lion-headed woman wearing a solar disk atop her head, symbolizing her connection to the sun, god Ra. The lion represents ferocity, vigilance, and authority, while the solar disk emphasizes her role as an agent of divine will and cosmic energy. Through these symbols, Sekhmet embodies both the terrifying and protective aspects of power, reminding humans of the duality inherent in nature and divinity. Her most famous myth involves Ra sending her to punish humanity for rebellion. Sekhmet's destructive power nearly obliterated mankind, but Ra's intervention, often through trickery or intoxication, restrained her fury. This story illustrates the Egyptians' nuanced understanding of divine power. It is both essential for maintaining order and potentially dangerous if uncontrolled. Sekhmet's rage teaches that force, like any tool, must be balanced with wisdom and restraint. Sekhmet is also a goddess of healing and medicine. Despite her fearsome aspect, she protects life and restores balance when invoked appropriately. Egyptian priests and physicians performed rituals and created amulets in her honor, calling upon her dual power to cure disease, safeguard health, and maintain harmony in the human body and spirit. In this way, Sekhmet demonstrates that destruction and healing are two sides of the same cosmic principle. Her association with war and protection extends to kingship. Pharaohs invoked Sekhmet's strength before battle, believing her power ensured victory and safeguarded the nation. Her presence symbolized courage, decisiveness, and the ability to confront threats directly. Yet her healing aspect reinforced the importance of restoring balance after conflict, highlighting the Egyptians' holistic view of divine influence. Destruction must lead to renewal, aggression to stability. Sekhmet's worship included festivals, rituals, and offerings to appease and honor her dual nature. Music, dance, and processions were central to these celebrations, emphasizing her dynamic energy and the balance between fear and reverence. By acknowledging both her wrath and protective capacity, Egyptians integrated Sekhmet's power into daily life, governance, and spiritual practice, ensuring that her influence remained constructive rather than purely destructive. In summary, Sekhmet is the lion-headed goddess of war, destruction, and healing. Her duality reflects the Egyptians' understanding that power is both dangerous and protective, aggressive and restorative. Sekhmet teaches that strength, vigilance, and courage must be balanced with wisdom, restraint, and compassion, demonstrating that divine energy serves life, order, and cosmic balance when properly guided. Osiris, one of the most central and enduring gods in Egyptian mythology, is the deity of the afterlife, resurrection, and fertility. He embodies the principles of death, rebirth, and moral order, making him essential to the Egyptians' understanding of life's continuity and the cosmic cycle. Osiris's influence is both spiritual and practical, guiding the deceased through the afterlife while symbolizing ethical governance and agricultural renewal. Osiris is often depicted as a mummified man, wearing a white crown flanked by ostrich feathers and holding a crook and flail. These symbols represent kingship, divine authority, and governance, reinforcing his role as the eternal ruler of the underworld. His green or black skin signifies regeneration, fertility, and the cyclical nature of life, emphasizing that death is not an end but a transformative process. Osiris's most famous myth recounts his murder by Seth, his brother, and subsequent resurrection by his wife and sister, Isis. This narrative illustrates themes of loyalty, magic, justice, and cosmic balance. Osiris's death represents chaos and disruption, while his resurrection restores order, legitimizes Horus's succession, and ensures the continuity of life. His story teaches that ethical action, loyalty, and divine intervention maintain harmony across mortal and divine realms. As Lord of the Afterlife, Osiris presides over the judgment of souls. In the Hall of Two Truths, the deceased's heart is weighed against the feather of Ma'at, with Thoth recording the results. Osiris ensures that the moral principles governing life continue beyond death, demonstrating the Egyptians' belief that ethical conduct is essential to both earthly and spiritual survival. Through this role, he bridges mortality and eternity, reinforcing cosmic balance and justice. Osiris is also closely linked to agriculture and fertility. His death and resurrection mirror the annual flooding of the Nile and the renewal of crops, symbolizing regeneration and sustenance. By aligning agricultural cycles with divine narratives, Egyptians integrated spiritual principles into practical life, reinforcing the interconnectedness of nature, divinity, and society. Temples dedicated to Osiris, including Abydos, became major pilgrimage sites. Devotees sought spiritual guidance, protection, and blessings for the afterlife, highlighting Osiris's pervasive role in both personal and communal religious life. Festivals celebrating his death and resurrection involved rituals, music, and reenactments, emphasizing the cyclical and transformative nature of his power. In summary, Osiris is the god of the afterlife, resurrection, and fertility. He embodies ethical governance, cosmic balance, and the cycle of death and renewal. His mythology illustrates that life, morality, and spiritual continuity are interconnected, teaching that ethical action, divine guidance, and respect for natural cycles sustain both human and cosmic order. Osiris remains one of the most central and enduring figures in Egyptian religion, symbolizing hope, continuity, and the eternal principle of rebirth. Anubis, the jackal-headed god, is one of the most iconic and vital deities in the Egyptian pantheon, serving as the guardian of the dead, protector of tombs, and guide through the afterlife. His presence represents the careful balance between life, death, and moral accountability. Unlike gods associated with creation, fertility, or warfare, Anubis's domain is the threshold between existence and eternity, where judgment, protection, and spiritual guidance are paramount. Anubis is typically depicted as a man with a black jackal head, or fully as a black jackal. The color black symbolizes fertility, regeneration, and the rich soil of the Nile, as well as the transformative aspects of death. The jackal, an animal often seen around cemeteries, was revered for its vigilance and protective nature. This imagery emphasizes Anubis's role as a watchful guardian who ensures that the boundaries between life and death remain secure and that the dead are cared for with precision and respect. Anubis's most critical function is overseeing mummification and funerary rites. He protects the deceased during embalming, ensuring that the body is preserved for the afterlife. Egyptians believed that proper preparation of the body was essential for the soul's successful journey, and Anubis's guidance was indispensable in this process. Priests acting as Anubis's agents performed rituals, recited spells, and conducted ceremonies designed to safeguard the integrity of the deceased, demonstrating that attention, ritual, and divine oversight preserve both physical and spiritual order. The god's role extends to the judgment of souls in the Hall of Two Truths. Anubis weighs the heart of the deceased against the feather of Ma'at, determining moral balance and suitability for eternal life. This act of weighing underscores Anubis's dual role, both protector and arbiter. By guiding souls and enforcing moral accountability, he ensures that justice, truth, and cosmic order persist beyond mortal life. Anubis's involvement in this process emphasizes the Egyptians' belief that death is not merely an end, but a carefully structured transition requiring divine vigilance and ethical alignment. Anubis's mythology often highlights his relationship with Osiris. In many accounts, he assists Isis and Horus in preparing Osiris for the afterlife after Seth's treachery. His protective, ritualistic, and guiding qualities ensure that Osiris can assume his role as Lord of the Underworld. This connection reinforces the idea that Anubis operates within a larger network of divine forces, maintaining order, protecting sacred law, and enabling continuity between life and the spiritual realm. Anubis's association with tombs and necropolises illustrates his practical and symbolic importance. By guarding burial sites, he prevents desecration, protects the sanctity of ritual spaces, and ensures that the deceased remain undisturbed. Statues, amulets, and inscriptions depicting Anubis were commonly placed in tombs to invoke his protection, symbolizing the Egyptians' understanding that the transition to the afterlife requires both spiritual guidance and physical safeguarding. Interestingly, Anubis embodies the principle of balance in life and death. While he is associated with the finality of death, he simultaneously fosters continuity, regeneration, and eternal protection. His black coloration symbolizes renewal, reminding worshippers that death is not an ultimate cessation, but a transformation and continuation within the divine order. Through Anubis, Egyptians conceptualized mortality as a process intertwined with morality, ritual, and cosmic harmony. Anubis also had a practical influence on daily life. Amulets bearing his image were believed to ward off evil, protect travelers, and safeguard individuals from harm. These symbolic representations highlight how divine guardianship extended beyond the tomb into the world of the living, creating a seamless connection between earthly existence and spiritual oversight. Worshippers relied on Anubis for protection, guidance, and reassurance, illustrating the Egyptians' holistic approach to divinity. Gods are both metaphysical forces and practical guides in daily life. His festivals and rituals emphasized reverence, preparation, and ethical reflection. Ceremonies dedicated to Anubis included processions, recitations of sacred texts, and symbolic acts that reinforced his authority over death, protection, and moral judgment. Through these practices, Egyptians internalized the values Anubis represents: vigilance, ethical responsibility, and respect for the natural and spiritual laws that govern existence. In summary, Anubis is the jackal-headed god of death, funerary rites, protection, and the afterlife. Anubis ensures that souls are safely guided, tombs are protected, and cosmic order is preserved. Now, with a smile on your face, you will have a good understanding of the history of all of the Egyptian gods, and a good night's sleep. Goodbye, dear friend. See you next time.